psychedelic drugs like psilocybin, mescaline, either in clinical settings or in the privacy of someone's home. Weigh in. Later in the show is Ask the Attorney General with Andrea Campbell. All that ahead. Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. The candidates are on the trail today. Vice President Harris is campaigning in Detroit. She'll hold a rally there today. Former President Donald Trump is speaking to the Economic Club of Chicago before he travels to Atlanta for a rally. He's also recording a Fox News town hall in Georgia today. Republican vice presidential candidate J.D. Vance will also join a town hall event in Pennsylvania. Democratic vice presidential candidate Tim Walz is criticizing remarks from Trump about using the National Guard or the military against, quote, the enemy from within. From member station WUWM, Chuck Quirmbach has more.
In an interview that aired Sunday on Fox News, former President Trump said, quote, radical left lunatics and others within the U.S. should be handled by the military if necessary if they disrupt Election Day. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz said Trump's comments make him sick to his stomach.
I'll tell you what, we'll let the lawyers decide if what he said was treason, but what I know is it's a call for violence, plain and simple, and it's pretty damn un-American, if you ask me.
The Wisconsin Republican Party calls Walz a far-left extremist and criticizes his record in Minnesota. For NPR News, I'm Chuck Quirmbach in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
The window for registering to vote in this fall's election is closing today in a handful of states. As NPR's Hansi Lo Wang reports, time is also running out in the key swing state of Pennsylvania.
There are only hours left to register to vote in this fall's election in 5 states: Kansas, Louisiana, New Jersey, Oregon, and West Virginia. And eligible voters in Pennsylvania, Alabama, and South Dakota have days until their state's deadlines on October 21st. Eligible South Dakotans who want to register, take note. There's no online registration, only by mail or in person. And already registered voters in all these states may want to check their registration status before these deadlines. Voters can sometimes be removed from lists, especially if they move, change their name, or haven't voted in a while. Early voting is underway in close to 3 dozen states. The Postal Service is urging mail-in voters to return their ballots at least 1 week before their state's deadlines. Hansi Lo Wang, NPR News.
The house-searching app Zillow is adopting a new feature. It's going to add climate risk scores to properties starting next year. The feature will show how vulnerable a home might be to flooding or wildfire or heat, air quality, or wind damage. But Washington Post reporter Hannah Ziegler says these risk scores are still very new.
Climate modeling experts say home buyers should take these scores with a grain of salt. They're still developing the best way to measure a home's climate risk, so data can be uneven depending on where a person is house hunting. So home buyers should treat the scores as warning flags rather than deal breakers.
She spoke to NPR's Morning Edition. Stocks are lower on Wall Street. Dow is down 111 points. This is NPR.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. The Cambridge Police Department and the Harvard University Police Department are jointly investigating an apparent act of religiously threatening vandalism after multiple anti-Semitic stickers were discovered around Harvard Square. These stickers were reported to police after they were discovered near Harvard Hillel, the university's largest Jewish center. These stickers are of the Israeli flag, but instead of the Star of David inside, there is a SWAT sticker in its place, along with the text, "Stop Funding Israeli Terrorism." The incident comes days after Hillel leadership reported intimidating posters discovered outside the Rozovsky Hall last week. And the city of Salem is announcing today that it's launching a new guaranteed income program that will provide $500 a month to some of the city's low-income residents with no strings attached. GBH's Craig Lamolt reports.
Salem Mayor Dominic Pangallo says they'll begin taking applications on October 28th for a lottery to select 100 people living at or below the federal poverty line.
The studies that have been done so far have demonstrated it provides greater access to food, greater access to health care, more flexibility to find jobs or to get the child care you need to be able to go to work. It provides a greater degree of mental health and wellness for families who are already struggling with a lot of pressures.
The Salem program is funded by federal money from the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA. Other Massachusetts cities, like Cambridge and Somerville, have also used ARPA money to create similar programs, but they're unsure if they can continue once that one-time funding is spent. Craig Lamolt, GBH News, 89.7.
50 degrees, this is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Doubleday, publishers of Framed by John Grisham and Jim McCloskey. 10 true stories of innocent people framed for murder and their fight for freedom. Also available as an audiobook. This is NPR.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Boston Children's Hospital, ranked the #1 pediatric hospital in the world by Newsweek. Boston Children's, where the world comes for answers. bostonchildrens.org/answers. And the Boston Speakers Series, 7 evenings at Symphony Hall, featuring Annette Gordon-Reed, Admiral James Stavridis, and composer Andrew Lloyd Webber. Information at bostonspeakers.org.
He's Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Yeagan. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live as we do every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday from the Boston Public Library. And we are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Big week for us, Jim. We have just debate in a couple of minutes about psychedelic legalization. Tomorrow we're going to be joined. Well, actually, she's zooming in. She's not going to be with us, unfortunately, because she's on the space station. That would be Sunny Williams, the astronaut who's up in space, is going to zoom in. And Governor Maura Healey is going to be with us from 1 to 2 for another edition of Ask the Governor. And on Friday, the great comedian and wonderful writer Jenny Slate is going to join us on Friday. We're going to have our musical interludes as well. Good morning.
2 things. Hi, Marjorie. One, Sunny Williams, if you care, is going to be at 11:40 tomorrow. We care a lot. We're very excited. Again, from the International Space Station. And at noon today, in just about an hour, the Attorney General will be here for an hour, Andrea Campbell, to answer our questions and yours. Every day this week at 11, we will lead a debate, really more a conversation on one of the 5 ballot questions that will be on the ballot this season, are on the ballot. Yesterday was question 5 on tip workers. You can go to our Twitter page to see which questions, which days. Here's how it works. First, roughly half hour, we'll have the yes and no side represented. Second half hour is your opportunity to weigh in and tell us what you think about the question. Today's debate is on question 4, whether to legalize certain psychedelic drugs. Voting yes on question 4 would allow naturally occurring psychedelic drugs like psilocybin, mescaline, DMT to be grown, shared, used at home, and offered by licensed professionals in a clinical setting. It would not establish a retail market, unlike the marijuana legalization process of a couple of years ago. Voting no on question 4 would maintain the status quo where psychedelics are illegal at the state level. Joining us now from the yes side is Emily Oneschuk, the grassroots campaign director for Massachusetts for Mental Health Options. She served in the U.S. Navy as an explosive ordnance disposal and diving officer and found psychedelics to be an important tool to improve her own mental health after leaving the military. Emily, it's good to see you. Thank you for being here. From the no side, Dr. Nassir Ghaemi is a psychiatrist and researcher specializing in depression and bipolar illness. He's a professor of psychiatry at Tufts Medical Center in Boston, clinical lecturer at Harvard Medical School, president of the MA Psychiatric Society. Dr. Nassir, it's good to have you too. Thank you both for being here.
Yeah, thank you both for joining in. So let's start with you, Emily. Why do you think this is a good idea?
Yeah, so, I come to this because it's deeply personal for me, right? And I really like the way we approach it. So we have the regulated framework and we have the decriminalization aspect. And it's not like cannabis, like Jim mentioned, right? There's no retail sales. But this transformed my life. 7 years ago, I lost my brother to gun violence. At the same time, I was the first female Navy SEAL candidate. And that stayed a pressure cooker through my time on active duty, about 5 years. And when I let the release valve off, I had PTSD, depression, anxiety. And, life was challenging. And went through conventional treatments at the VA. I wasn't seeing much improvement, and life kept getting darker, which wasn't what I expected to happen. And I knew psychedelic therapy was an option, but I was nervous, right? Like, I would have to fly out of the country to take drugs I had never done before. My parents were scared. I was scared. But I knew there was a lot of research going on. I knew there was research going on in Massachusetts. And I, did my homework and went through what was a really transformative experience for me. Which is how I ended up advocating for it now. I forgot what it was like to feel good for the better part of a decade. And when you're only, at the time I was 27, like that's a big chunk of your life that I wanted back. So I saw these things transform my life. I've seen them transform so many other people's lives. And, I believe it's a really important option for people to have during what is a mental health crisis.
Dr. Ghaemi, why should people vote no?
Well, this ballot question is really not about mental health primarily. It's about unregulated legalization with home growth and distribution for recreational use and abuse. So it's going to be harmful to the public health by causing traffic accidents, emergency room visits, overwhelming our hospitals. It's going to be harmful to patients with mental illnesses who actually get worse and more psychotic with these drugs, which we'll talk about. And it does not solve the mental health crisis in a general sense. You have to understand that these substances are, scientifically, the term for them is hallucinogens. They cause hallucinations and delusions. That's their effect. Now, there may be, under certain circumstances, some benefits to that if the harms are mitigated, but to legalize them all the way for anybody to take grow it in their bedroom and take it when they want to, goes way too far and is way too dangerous.
You want to respond to any of that, Emily?
Yeah, so I want to circle back to this isn't for mental health, and I strongly disagree with that, right? This is a mental health option. We don't, say it's a panacea, but, something that I like to think about is if we could have addressed the mental health crisis with traditional medications, through tools that we already have, we would have addressed it already. But 17 veterans die by suicide every day. I lose a member of the EOD community probably every other month. I had a friend text me last week that one of his veteran buddies at, the college he's attending killed himself. And I'm really tired of sitting by the sidelines waiting for someone else to come up with an option that, frankly, I haven't heard of. So this is an option that we can act on right now. I feel very passionately about it, and so do a lot of other veterans.
Emily, let me clarify something, though. That the setting that you engaged in was a structured, supervised setting. Am I right about that?
Yes.
This ballot question goes way beyond that. It goes, people can grow on their own. They can share with other people with no supervision, no structure. Why didn't you limit, for example, I think it's Oregon that has limited one drug to start, psilocybin, and it's got to be in a licensed, structured setting. Why not start with that rather than this expansive version that you and your colleagues have proposed?
Yep, so the two-part approach I think is really important. I actually didn't feel that way initially. And it took me a little while to wrap my head around it because the structure for me was very important. But what I had to come to realize was that hundreds of thousands of people are using these already, right? And they're using them without being able to talk to their healthcare provider about it. They're not able to get vetted information anywhere but the internet. So keeping them criminalized is just keeping the stigma up where people aren't getting information on what responsible, safe use looks like.
Doctor, you mentioned the homegrown angle as being upsetting to you. Suppose that we're not in this. Suppose that we're just going to a clinic and paying apparently $1,000 would be the amount of money, which is not cheap, but going to a clinic and receiving these substances in a controlled setting with some sort of therapist.
Yeah, I'll answer that. Let me just mention, decriminalization does not require a full-scale legalization in an unregulated way where you can grow these things in your spare bedroom.
Would you support decriminalization?
Yes, and I think most people do. And in fact, it's just that all that would take is a vote by the legislature.
Did you ever propose that to did the Massachusetts Psychiatric Society propose that to the legislature?
Well, we actually weren't involved in any of this until the venture capital millions put this on the ballot question a year ago. We didn't get involved till the last few months.
Okay,
but we'd be happy to. Yeah, so decriminalization does not require this ballot question. That's point number one. Point number two, it's interesting to me that people talk about mental health options and then they ignore people with mental illnesses. People who have schizophrenia, bipolar illness, and some severe forms of depression represent 5% of the population. That's hundreds of thousands of citizens of Massachusetts. They have psychotic states naturally as part of their diseases. If you give them drugs that cause psychotic states, hallucinations, delusions, they will get worse. If you give me a minute, I could like to describe a case of mine, one of my own
Briefly,
patients.
if you can, sure.
Because I'm a doctor, I treat patients, I see them clinically. And I have a patient who was in her early 20s who got ayahuasca twice for mild depression. And then she developed a much more severe depression. It got worse. She got fully psychotic with delusions and hallucinations, ended up in the hospital for 6 months, catatonic, which means she couldn't move, eat, drink, or talk. She had to get a feeding tube. And eventually she got better with electroshock treatments, and now she's on psychiatric medications. Her family knows these drugs are dangerous, but she can't really come up here and talk about it for privacy reasons. And we doctors see these situations in our practices, but you don't know about it in public. She's not coming up here to tell her tragedy. That's why the American Psychiatric Association, which represents 40,000 psychiatrists in the country, the majority of psychiatrists, opposes this ballot question in Massachusetts formally. The Massachusetts Psychiatric Society, which is a state branch which I belong to, represents 1,500 psychiatrists, the majority in the state. We formally oppose it. The Massachusetts Medical Society, which represents 25,000 physicians in the state and publishes the most prestigious scientific journal in the world, formally opposes this bill because we see the patients and we see the harms.
We got it.
But what I was asking, though, is if this were not the homegrown in the bedroom, as you put it, and this were just in a clinic with a therapist, because as everybody knows, we have a mental health epidemic.
Right.
Most people get no treatment because they can't afford it or there aren't any therapists. And even if they do get treatment, as you know better than I do, could be years finding the right so-called cocktail, right? So why not in a supervised setting? What's wrong with that?
So 2 points on that. One is what the setting actually is in this ballot question, and the other is the actual research on this. In the ballot question, it specifically states that it cannot be restricted to medical professionals or mental health professionals as the so-called licensed facilitators in these so-called therapy centers.
Well,
and in Oregon,
just a second,
in Oregon, they have high school degrees and take a 3-month course on hallucinogens. So you're going to have facilitators who have high school degrees, and they're not going to be adequately educated to screen out the people with bipolar.
Let's have the time is imbalanced here. We want to try to get back in balance. Go ahead, Emily.
To hit on the medical professionals, so my facilitators were not medical professionals, right? These are people that were trained through various routes, and I think we overlook the value of the indigenous roots of this. A lot of this healing comes from history that's a lot older than us, and doesn't require you to be a medical professional. And the other thing I'd like to say about, so I'm not a doctor, but I am a patient, and I do have a doctor. And I went to my doctor at the VA, and she said, "What are you doing for your PTSD and depression anxiety?" And I said, "I'm doing psilocybin mushrooms." And she said, "Do you saute those?" And I said, "No." And I told her what they were, and she went white as a sheet and said, "Please stop using them." And I was like, that was not the response I hoped for, right? I was hoping for a conversation. I was hoping for some, being informed. I was hoping for some curiosity. And what I feel like, and Dr. Ghaemi mentioned, people, right? There's a lot of people that have mental health issues that are probably using these already. In fact, the highest case usage we see is people with depression who are probably not talking to their doctors about them because of the stigma, because they fear what could happen if they were open. So by keeping them in the dark, people aren't going to stop using them.
By the way, I know people who are doing exactly what Emily's talking about, friends who are using them, and again, they're illegal in Massachusetts. So why not bring them in to daylight, even if imperfect, and then go to the legislature and say, we should make sure that the therapy centers have medical people rather than people who don't have to have medical degrees. Improve it rather than kill it.
Well, so if this ballot question passes, it becomes the law. The legislature can't change the question.
That is totally untrue.
It can change how it's implemented, but
they can repeal it. I used to do ballot campaigns. They can repeal it. They can amend it. They can leave it as it. It's a law like any other. The legislature can fix.
I'll take that back. Let me just say on the depression and the veterans issue, if I can comment on that.
Sure, of course.
So in the studies that have been done in depression, these substances have been shown to be as effective as standard antidepressants, but not more. So the claim that they're transformative and they would be a big improvement on what we have now is actually disproven with the research we have so far, at least on depression. On PTSD, they may have some benefits, and if they're proven effective, I think we would love to prescribe these medications to veterans with PTSD in a medically supervised, safe setting when we know they're effective. And if we don't know they're effective, we could just be giving them harmful drugs and without helping them, and that would harm the veterans.
We're talking to Dr. Nassir Ghaemi, who wants a no vote on this question, and Emily Oneschuk, who wants a yes vote. Doctor, I want to stay with you for a second. The most comprehensive analysis, unbiased, not taking position on all 5 ballot questions, was done by the Center for State Policy Analysis at Tufts. And you mentioned the patient you had who had a horrible outcome. Let me read what they said. There are 2 states that have some variation on this. The narrow version, just psilocybin in licensed clinics in Oregon. No notable health incidents have been reported, but data is limited as the state added information gathering, etc. Colorado, which is much more expansive, more drugs, more settings, you can grow at home. Some psychedelics pose health risks, but we haven't seen severe impacts in Colorado where they've been legal for years. So no one is questioning your individual case. But as a whole, in the 2 states that are ahead of Massachusetts, the results seem not to be nearly as dire as you're projecting them to be.
Well, the data gathering in Oregon has been quite limited. They spoke at the State House in the spring and more or less said so. It's a couple comments on this. One is ibogaine, one of the 5 substances, is known to cause cardiac arrhythmias and cardiac arrest. So there's no question that one of these substances is medically dangerous. And in terms of car accidents, which we're concerned about, and emergency room visits have doubled with hallucinogens in the past decade in their current usage in the country. And
do you support outlawing alcohol?
No.
Why? I mean, what you're describing to me as a layperson sounds like a mild version of what alcohol causes.
I get it, but listen, drug driving in Massachusetts leading to driver's license revocations has increased 65% in the last few years. States which have legalized cannabis have a 4% higher fatality rate, which means that 12 people a year would die in this state extra because of that. And that's just a conservative estimate. So the point is, of course, people have alcohol access, and we try to handle drunk driving. But if you take 18 grams of mescaline, which this bill allows, which is 36 times more than the average dose, you will have visual hallucinations. And if you were on mescaline right now, Jim, you wouldn't know where you are. But you could get behind a car.
Some days I don't know where I am, and I'm not on mescaline. Emily, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, respond to that, and then I have a question for you too, Emily. Go ahead.
I mean, I think like Jim was saying, like these pose risks just like alcohol poses risks, just like cannabis poses risks, just like taking too much Tylenol poses a risk. And the way we see mitigating those risks is education, open conversations, right? Like talking less about it doesn't make anyone safer. You have to educate about it, and you have to discuss how to use these things safely. Otherwise, everyone's just in a Google rabbit hole on a Reddit page.
I'm sorry, Emily. Mescaline is not Tylenol.
Well, can we talk about one drug that's on this?
Hold on.
Go ahead,
one thing I want to say that seems to me different from this. You take a medicine for antidepressant, whatever it is, and you need to keep taking it. One of the things that seems unusual about this, and this has been true, you've read about this back to William James talking about variety of religious experience, or people talking about psychedelics in general, that experiences on psychedelics can stay with you.
Yes.
It's an experience of seeing things in a different way, which is different than taking Prozac or anything else.
Yeah, I've never heard of anyone having a religious experience on Prozac. Yeah, so these experiences, I can speak to myself personally, and a lot of other people I know, fundamentally shifted how I viewed myself, how I viewed the world around me in a really positive manner, right? It's not something you take every day. I maybe come back to these at some point in my life when I want to feel reconnected to something, but it's not a traditional medication in that I don't have to take it every day, and it's not mitigating symptoms. It's changing how I feel about myself.
Can we? I want to focus just 1 second. I want to focus on something the doctor said a minute ago, Emily. The one drug, and I think there are 5 drugs, psychedelics or hallucinogens that are legalized under this. This ibogaine. The doctor is right. Obviously, he's right.
Yes.
Their acute cardiac problems can result. I ask you the same question I asked you to begin with. Why include, unlike psilocybin, where there's very little evidence of horrible reactions, some, but very little, why include a drug like ibogaine where there is evidence that really serious problems can result, particularly for the homegrown person who's not under some supervision?
So I'll say with ibogaine, it'd be pretty impossible to grow it here. It's a bush that only grows in sub-Saharan Africa. So there's that
But it's
piece.
in the question.
It is in the question because the use of it is incredibly powerful for specifically treating addiction. I know more than 3 people that have completely moved away from opiate addiction because of their treatment with ibogaine, and it's incredibly powerful. And that's what this is about: is providing people options that they don't.
So
have.
to be clear, you're basically saying since it's very unlikely to be grown here, it would probably only be available in these supervised settings.
Yes.
Okay.
Doctor, one of the things I wondered about, we're all talking about the legislature, which I find ridiculous, actually, because we have the least effective legislature in the country, and the reason the marijuana question wound up in the ballot here, because despite people wanting it
3 times.
Yeah, exactly, because the legislature and lawmakers were all opposed to even recreational marijuana for the most part. Anyway, one of the things that seems to be appealing here, I'm not dying yet, but there seems to be a lot of use of these drugs when people are dying to ease anxiety as they deal with their pain or their fear of death and stuff. I mean, what about that?
We support the medical use of these drugs by medical professionals in a supervised medical setting. This ballot question specifically excludes medical professionals and puts it in the hands of high school diploma people, and or just grow it yourself in your bedroom. So you can't safely use it that way.
But in practicality, are any doctors going to the homes of people that are dying and giving them psilocybin?
We have psychiatrists who practice, some of whom support the question, who practice in our hospitals giving these drugs for oncology cancer patients. We have no problem with what those doctors are doing.
So they're giving DMT and psilocybin and these particular drugs?
Low-dose psilocybin for people with cancer to help them ease their experience.
And what's the law there?
I think some of that might be under research protocols. I'm not sure. I'd have to check that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But again, we're not opposed to medical use, but this is not medical use. This is full-scale legalization in an unregulated. And by the way, for-profit way, if I can say, $5 million have been spent to get this bill on the ballot, paying people to get signatures for the question, and for the advertising that's happened in favor of it. And we doctors are all just volunteers. And we would not be here if there weren't billions to be made in this marketplace.
Well, there are some strange people that are supporting this. Peter Thiel, Steve Bannon, Matt Gaetz.
So those folks haven't.
The guy that was.
Oh, you go ahead. Emily.
Yeah. So those folks haven't funded our ballot initiative. Peter Thiel, who I read your newsletters, by the way. Peter Thiel is not funding our ballot.
But nationwide, they're involved in this.
I believe he's involved in it.
But a bunch of tech millionaires are.
Let Emily respond, please.
So the folks that are supporting our ballot are people that I've got to know personally, right? And they're doing this because they care about it, because they've had family members struggle with mental health, because they see it as an improvement to what is a failing mental health system, right? And they're people, they live here in Massachusetts, they care about this just like I care about it.
Can I this is a hard question to ask in light of what Marjorie said about how we do have, according to independent research, the least effective legislature in the country. A brief answer, you acknowledge there could be some serious benefit from some of these drugs. You're nodding in agreement.
Yes.
And some people believe that your ballot question goes too far. There's a history in this state where questions that have been on the ballot, I can think of at least two instances, one of which I was involved in, where the two parties got together, reached a compromise, went to the legislature and basically said, regardless of what happens on election day, a yes or a no, this is what we want you to pass as a compromise. Starting with you, is that something you'd engage in if it turns out that Dr. Ghaemi and others were willing to move in your direction, even if not as far as you'd like?
Yeah, well, I think, Jim, you brought it up. You said it exactly earlier, right? This will go to the legislature if it passes and will change, right? And
no, I didn't say would change.
Well,
I said it could change.
Could change.
Yeah.
Could change. And I think the way we build the best law for Massachusetts is to have a lot of voices like doctors and patients and a lot of other folks who care about this come together to make it what we need it to be.
Dr. Ghaemi, tell us what in this question you could support if it was, just so we understand where you're coming from, if they were standalone. I know they're not, but just so people understand, standalone, separate pieces.
So I'm just speaking for myself now.
Fine.
I can't speak for anybody
That's
else.
Fine.
But I think very low-dose psilocybin in a medically supervised setting with a medical professional or a mental health professional for PTSD alone, where the possible benefit is being suggested, I think that's possible. But outside of that, the public health harms far outweigh any possible benefit that this question has.
And forgive me if you discussed this before, but why is the homegrown part so important to your bill?
So the homegrown piece, again, this is, I think, with DCRIM, we're just meeting what's already going on. People can buy these they can buy grow kits online. They can grow them in their houses right now. 8 cities and towns in Massachusetts, including Somerville, Cambridge, and Salem, have already decriminalized. This is already happening with no regulation on it whatsoever. So this puts parameters on it. And we're just trying to meet the reality of what's going on.
Okay.
How about that, Doctor? I mean, I think it's 8 cities and towns that have voted in local ballot campaigns to allow this to happen. Would imperfect rules and regulations, which you would argue this is, aren't they better than none, which is what we currently have?
No, because we think that the public health harms far outweigh the theoretical benefits that are unproven with these substances. They're not even benefits, it's just recreational use. And if you're going to, by doing that, kill 12 people a year extra in car accidents, disable an extra 100 people, fill up our emergency rooms more than they already are with the current tragedies where people are not getting prompt medical care. We just think, the Mass Medical Society, American Psychiatric Association, Mass Psych Society, that this harms the public health.
But I hate to be a broken record. I'll quote myself. Alcohol is this one in spades. I mean, the impact is many times worse than the impact you're describing here.
But when you take one drink, you are not going to have visual hallucinations where you don't know where you are. This is a different level.
Could you, do you have one thing to say, and then we'd like you both to give us a closing thought?
Absolutely. Well, I just want to hit on what he says with this, saying this isn't effective is kind of insulting to me and frankly the people sitting in this crowd that have come to support me that have also benefited from this. So I just find that to be undermining.
If I can answer that. I didn't say that.
Let her finish, and then you can say whatever you'd like. Go ahead.
No, I think, of course I want more research. Of course I want more data, but I also can't ignore myself and the hundreds of other people that I've met through this campaign that have really benefited from this.
So why don't you respond if you choose, Doctor, and then give us 30 or 45 seconds, sort of a wrap-up argument for people still unsure what they're going to do on question 4.
Let me just say, I was in medical school in the 1980s, and my first experience was in the VA with Vietnam veterans. I've worked with the Army in screening people who want to join the military during the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. I'm very collaborative with colleagues in the VA system. I never said that these drugs don't work for PTSD. I said they're not proven to work. And actually, the only drug studied, MDMA, ecstasy, is not one of the 5 substances in this bill. So I'm not saying they don't work. I'm saying we don't really know that they work. And with all of the harms that we do know, the harms outweigh the potential benefits.
Why should people vote yes? One more time,
Yeah.
Emily.
So again, the two-pronged approach. We have the regulated therapeutic structure that's going to be up and running. We have decriminalization. And for me personally, I know these work because they changed my life. I know that 7 years ago, right, I lost my little brother. I was in immense pressure under national news. I went through 5 years on active duty where I endured a series of very unpleasant experiences and came out with a host of diagnoses, PTSD and depression and anxiety. And I did what I was supposed to do at the VA, and that didn't help me. And these did, and I had to travel to Jamaica to go do them. And if I did them here, I could have been criminally penalized. So it's also not just about me, right? There's 17 veterans commit suicide every day. This doesn't just help veterans, helps people with all kinds of issues. And we need other options. I don't think, I think everyone here can agree that we're in a mental health crisis and our current options aren't serving us.
Do you have a website? Yes, I
We do.
What is it?
maformentalhealth.org.
maformentalhealth.org. Doctor, is there a no website?
I don't know, actually. We're a bunch of volunteer doctors. I don't think we've
If
gotten
you
around
find
to it.
out later today before 2 o'clock that there is, if you contact us, we'll
I think
make
there's
sure
a coalition, but I don't know what their website
we'll
is.
check it out.
Yeah.
Thank you both for your time. We really appreciate
Could
you
I
being
just get a final comment?
I thought that was your final comment.
No, you didn't. She had a final statement.
You have 15 seconds.
I
Take it.
appreciate it. Well, for every person who does well, we doctors see patients who do very poorly, and they deserve to be known about as well. And the public's health matters. This ballot question, funded by venture capitalists, is not about public health. It's about private wealth and recreational use and abuse. We stand for public health, and we ask you to vote no.
Thank you both. We really appreciate your time. Thank you.
We have been speaking with Emily Oneschuk, the grassroots campaign director from Massachusetts for Mental Health Options. She represents Yes on 4. And Dr. Nassir Ghaemi, a psychiatrist and researcher specializing in depression and bipolar illness, professor of psychiatry at Tufts and currently serving a term as president of the Massachusetts Psychiatric Society. He represents No on 4. Coming up next, we're going to open the floor to you. Should Massachusetts legalize psychedelics? The number is 877-301-8970.
You count on Boston Public Radio for context, analysis, and insight, and Boston Public Radio counts on you. It's our fall membership drive, and we're raising the money needed to keep this show supported in the months ahead. Pitch in and keep the conversation going. Call 888-897-9424 or give online at gbhnews.org.
You know, it's funny that we're talking about Rick Steves right after this discussion about hallucinogenic drugs. Marijuana is a mild hallucinogen, and Rick Steves is one of the first people that talked about...
That's how I met him.
Talked about marijuana legalization in Massachusetts. Well, anyway, Rick Steves has got this great deal for a gift of $12.50 a month. It's not Rick Steves' gifts, it's our gifts, but he's got this virtual wine tasting, and he's going to be the host of this thing. We did this once before, Jim. It was great. What happens is we mail 6 small bottles of Italian wine, not for 2 people, to your door, these little bottles, and you learn about the wines and you taste the wines right in your house. And Rick Steves is there entertaining you with his tales of flying and traveling all around the world. You get instructions, you get interactive trivia, and you get an enjoyable evening with Rick Steves. It's our gift today, $12.50 per month or $150 all at once to support GBH and get your tickets. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
The reason I'm laughing is when Marjorie and I hosted one of these things, and by the way, if I had a choice between Rick Steves and us, I'd choose Rick Steves too.
Yes.
He's a great storyteller. Marjorie and I had a little bit to drink before to see what it was like.
Yep.
And the sommelier who was part of it, we called by the wrong name for an hour and a half.
It was terrible.
So the wine
it
was really
The wine was
humiliating.
great, though. It was great. And you got all these instructions about how to smell it, how to taste it, how to sift it.
It's about, you learn a lot, plus
Yep.
it's a really fun thing. You invite other people out to your house, and also to have an evening with Rick Steves, I think one of the most interesting people on the planet, is a wonderful opportunity. Again, the date is February 11th, so you have plenty of time to plan. You'll also receive did you say this, an 89.7 GBH wine kit, like one of those.
Yep.
You go to gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424. And if you haven't memorized this yet, say it with me, a little more than 70% of our annual budget comes from listener support. The very, very small 3, 4, 5% from the government. So the bottom line is we're dependent on you to do what we and our colleagues do here. If you like what you hear, if you value what you hear, particularly in election season, you're getting, for example, all 5 ballot questions will be debated on the show this week. The Attorney General's here today. The Governor's here tomorrow. Sonny Williams is zooming in from the space station. I would say that's worth quite a lot. And if you agree with me, give whatever you can. 888-897-9424 or go to gbhnews.org. Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We're streaming on youtube.com/GBH News. Go to our Twitter page. You'll find out which debates we're doing Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. We just heard representatives from both sides of question 4, whether to legalize certain psychedelics in Massachusetts. Now the lines are open to hear your thoughts. Are you voting yes? Are you voting no? Do you have some outstanding questions? Do you have any personal experience? The number is 877-301-8970 to call or text. A really important thing that we mentioned, the ballot initiative is not a direct parallel to the ones that legalized marijuana a few years ago. It will allow people to grow at home, share, and there are some supervised settings, but it will not establish a retail market for sales. Again, the number is 877-301-8970. And by the way, the No campaign does have a website. It's Safe Communities, MA, as in Mass, ma.org.
We have some very interesting texts on this.
Please.
I've taken antidepressants for 30 years. Whoops. You have to continue because it disappeared.
Okay, then. Good.
Sorry.
Well, that's an interesting perspective. Should we take some calls? We have a lot of them.
Oh, here it is.
Okay,
I've taken antidepressants for 30 years. If only my doctor had given me other options. I've been taking psilocybin cubanus for 4 months now. I'll repeat, no antidepressant has ever given me relief like I feel now. My therapist is giving me, it's weaning me from the chemicals and supports my quest to get off pills. No name, please. I do live in Massachusetts, and she gets these capsules, this person says, legally through the mayor. And somebody else says...
Through the mayor?
Through the mail.
Oh.
Yep.
Stephanie in Rentham, you are first on Boston Public Radio. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Hi. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I also want to thank you for... Let's see. I'm hearing an echo. But in any case, I want to thank you for doing these issues discussions because I think they're really important. And I'm really sorry that we didn't do this for the cannabis laws. But I think what's really important about using and having available the psilocybin and mushrooms is that there isn't any other proven or any kind of treatment that's totally reliable. And so I would support that part of it, but I'm really opposed to this particular bill because growing it and making it available to share and not knowing where it's shared and with whom it's shared with means that it's potentially accessible to young brains that are developing, and we have no information about what that's going to do for in the long run, and I think that's something, a concern and a danger that's not being addressed. This isn't like kidneys. Your brain is not your kidney.
Got it. Stephanie, thank you for your perspective. We appreciate it. 877-301-8970.
Yeah, a lot of the texters are mentioning they're uneasy about the homegrown aspect of this bill as opposed to going to a place and having it under supervision. Isabel from Salem, thank you for calling.
Hi, Isabel.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you.
And I really do appreciate that you're doing this. So,
thanks.
As I'm listening, as someone who's involved in the psychedelic community, I was really disappointed with how the doctor presented the risks involved with psychedelics.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, with any test, there's going to be risks. There's a growing body of research that says that actually psychedelics are some of the safest.
We didn't.
She disappeared.
Oh, you're there.
Hey,
Isabel, we lost you when you said are some of the safest. Pick it up from there if you don't mind, please.
Okay, growing body of research that says that these are some of the safest drugs. There's a false equivalence made between, say, psilocybin and alcohol, completely different drugs, and many, I'm not a doctor, but I think many doctors would say that alcohol poses a far greater public health risk than these types of drugs, which are already being used quite safely. To say that they're ineffective is indeed insulting to even people who use it recreationally. I think that there's this sense that, kind of this leftover sense from the 60s, the war on drugs, that these drugs are all bad, or that using them recreationally is somehow a bad thing, when they can have really positive impacts on mild anxiety, mild depression. And so I really wish that there wasn't so much fear-mongering. I think there's totally fair issues with, the amount of home growing that's being allowed, the lack of a retail market. I think there's totally fair issues to be had. There's reasons to vote no that aren't based on fear-mongering. And really these false claims about the public health risks of psychedelics.
So how are we, wait.
Really
I thought from the first half of that call you were voting yes, and then you said there are reasons to vote no. How are you voting and why?
I haven't fully decided.
Okay.
I think I'm leaning.
I'm leaning yes.
Legalized.
This line is horrible. It's not your fault. Isabel, thanks for the call. We appreciate it. New phones are working quite well, I think. I think they're really quite a hit.
Here's Paul from Worcester. I'm voting yes for a few reasons, some of which are about your show. There are some segments when I feel like I'm on drugs, some segments when I wish I were on drugs, and some that I need drugs just to get through.
But I'm bummed. Thank you very much. Let's go to Gary somewhere in Massachusetts. Hey there, Gary. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Yes, Colin, I do agree with the legalization.
Yeah.
But I think it would be smart to have some sort of agreement in the middle to have it regulated, to get it going first, and then they can, work on other things once that gets, do one step at a time, just so, everyone can be comfortable with the situation, because I do agree that there is a benefit.
Gary, thanks for the call. Let me explain what I was explaining when we had the the proponent and the opponent here. When a ballot question passes, unless it amends the Constitution, like the millionaires tax did, it's a law, like any other law. The legislature can do with it what it can do to any law. Amend it, repeal it, do nothing. But if the legislature thought your idea was a good one, they could amend it to that effect. There's no guarantee, but they are free to do whatever they choose.
Which is really annoying, too. When people vote for it a certain way, then the legislature gets to change it.
Well, can I disagree with you, too? First of all, I did ballot questions where after spending millions of dollars and years working, the legislature just repealed what the voters had said. That is aggravating. When the people have spoken, no piece of legislation is perfect in its first draft. If they can improve within the spirit, assuming this passes, I have no idea if it will, improve it, make it better if it becomes the law on November 5th or January, whenever it is, then I think that's their obligation to do, not to mess with it, but to fix it, if that's the case. We got to take a break.
Didn't they mess with your proposal to?
They totally repealed. We want to in 19.
You want a huge ballot question?
Something. I led a campaign to make Massachusetts the first state in the country to force publicly traded corporations, banks, and insurance companies to disclose what they paid in taxes. The voters approved it, and the legislature repealed it a few months later.
You didn't find that annoying, Jim?
I found that annoying. That was annoying. Yes, it was.
Yeah, I find a lot of what they do extremely annoying. But we're talking about a question. Which question is this? Question 4. Legalization of some psychedelic drugs. What do you think? You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
It's time to support Boston Public Radio on GBH. Listener contributions pay for the program and keep it on the air. You don't have to give much to make a difference. Please make a difference by giving now at gbhnews.org or by calling 888-897-9424.
Okay, so Marjorie calls it an enticement. It's a gift. It's a something. If you're kind enough to give $150 to support GBH, you get these 6 small bottles. They're not that small, by the way. Bottles of Italian wine, enough for 2 people, shipped to your door. Then on February 11th at 8 o'clock, you spend the night, with Rick Steves, the brilliant, terrific travel writer, for a virtual wine tasting. It's $12.50 a month or $150 all at once. As Marjorie said, we've done 2, I think, actually, where we were sort of the alleged attraction with a sommelier. It was huge fun, and I think the people who bought into it loved it too. And you can buy into this, and better than us, you get Rick Steves at 888-897-9424, or you go online to gbhnews.org.
And you can get all the hors d'oeuvres, hors d'oeuvres to go with it if you're
They don't
home.
come with it, though.
They don't, but if you're at home, you can have the appropriate cheese and crackers or anything you want. But as
you can, that's true. Or pigs in blankets.
You'd have something more elaborate, I'm
whatever.
sure. But as Jim said earlier, we depend on listener support to put this operation out 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. More than 70% of our budget comes from listener support, and most of it is small donations, like $10 or $5 a month or $15 a month. We had the Rick Steves night for $12.50 a month. And by the way, Patrick from Belmont, who just contributed, he says, I listen every day to GBH, and my wife loves Rick Steves. Who doesn't love Rick Steves? He's going to be the sommelier extraordinaire.
No, he's not sommelier.
Well, isn't he going to talk
He's
about
the
the wine?
host. There'll be a sommelier.
Okay, he's the host. There'll also be a sommelier. I thought he was the sommelier as well. But in any case, it'll be a really fun night. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And the Shakespeare Concerts, presenting an evening of music for voices and string quartet, Friday, October 18th, at BU's Marsh Chapel, beginning at 7. Admission open to the public. No ticket or registration required. And the Newberry of Brookline, a Kisco signature community located on nearly 4 acres in Fisher Hill and providing independent, assisted, and memory care residences. Opening this fall. Learn more at lifeatthenewberry.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We're live at the library, streaming youtube.com/GBH News. This is day 2 of our 5 straight days of starting the 11 o'clock hour with a debate between both sides in one of the 5 ballot questions, followed by getting your input. Today's question was whether to legalize some psychedelic drugs. Tomorrow is whether or not to eliminate the requirement to pass MCAS as a graduation requirement. If you go to our Twitter page, you can find out what's on the other days. Erin in Cambridge. Hello there.
Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi. I am calling with less of a comment on the ballot question itself and more of the presentation of the doctor versus the layperson.
Yep.
Who were kind of set up to debate on equal footing. To me, it's a little bit of fact versus opinion. And I definitely was convinced to vote no for the ballot question in hearing that debate. But
Well, I don't understand. Excuse me. First of all, both sides were the sides the Secretary of State recognized as the leaders of their side. 2, I'm assuming you're saying the doctor was fact and Emily was describing her own situation, which I think is as fact-based as you get. Where was the not fact?
I mean, I guess I think I would have rather heard somebody who was pro, who would have be a yes vote and then a no vote, and then have the doctor almost as a third party giving additional facts on the research itself.
Well, we hear you. We appreciate your perspective. But again, we go by what the Secretary of State determines are the leaders of both sides, and we don't interfere because it's not our business. But Aaron, thank you for the call. By the way, all of these debates will be up at gbhnews.org if you missed them or want to see them again.
Here's Jonna, who gave me all her credentials for therapy. She says, I'm a therapist using ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, and this type of psychedelic has been helpful for my clients. Healing from alcohol abuse, trauma, and depression. Psilocybin would be enhancement to the options. She's participating in trainings to promote harm reduction and the thoughtful use of these substances in therapy, and she has clients already using these substances on their own. You know what I'm confused about?
Remember you remember our first discussion was about this? With Michael Pollan,
yeah,
who wrote a book about his own engagement with psychedelic drugs years and years
That's
before
right.
This went mainstream. But go ahead, I'm sorry.
As we know, I took all through states of consciousness in college. So
we were very well aware of that and practiced it too.
Yeah. Let's go to M at home. Hi.
Hello, M, I guess.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, how are you?
Fine, thanks.
Second time caller. So I have experienced ayahuasca twice.
M, we got to put you on hold. The connection's atrocious. We'll try to get back to you if we have time. Sorry.
And we have somebody else who says, I'm very against the legalization of shrooms. That's what they call psilocybin, magic mushrooms. I see the benefits of having them used in medical settings, but I've had a bad experience. Could only see them being abused more by youth for fun rather than medicinally, and I'm concerned it would have an ill effect on those kids.
Janet in the car, you have a minute. Go.
Hey, I'm sorry. I just wanted to quickly say nobody's addressing the pharmaceutical part of this, and there were psilocybin studies and ongoing treatment. I think it was back in the 60s and 70s, where that's when they started to outlaw it because the pharmaceuticals wanted their drugs to be used and not the natural mushrooms. So I just think it needs to be looked at more from the side of somebody like Emily, who's gone through, such difficult times, and she has found a natural substance that sustains her. I understand that the bill, I hope it passes, and they're going to have to, inject some, I can't think of the word, but yes, they're going to have to fix it together.
I got it, yeah.
But
we got it.
Yeah.
Janet, thank you for the call. You're a yes vote. By the way, a couple of things. Not only are all these debates going to be on gbhnews.org, Evan Horowitz, who is behind these brilliant analyses, even-handed of all 5 questions, will join us the day before the election to go over all 5 questions yet again. He's from the Center for State Policy Analysis at Tufts.
Okay, coming up after the noon news, we're going to be joined by the Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Andrea Campbell is next. She'll take our questions and yours. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News and broadcasting from the Boston Public Library.
It's Boston Public Radio on GBH. Listener support is the most important and largest source of funding for GBH. Please take a few minutes and give right now. When you do, you'll be one of the many people who helps to keep Boston Public Radio on the air. gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424. Good morning, I'm Liz Lavoie here with Melissa Jones.
Right now, we're looking to receive 18 contributions in the next 7 minutes to keep on track for this hour. Please sign up right now as a sustaining member or make a one-time gift, gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424. The money you give right now helps fund the news in the months ahead, and boy, do we need it now more than ever, right? gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
And support GBH now, and we'll thank you with a ticket to a virtual wine tasting with expert traveler and author Rick Steves. Your ticket includes 6 small bottles of wine, plenty for 2 people, shipped right to your door. Save the date. It's Tuesday, February 11th, beginning at 8 p.m. online and straight in your own home. You'll also receive the GBH Wine Key. Enjoy wine tasting, instruction, conversation, trivia, and an enjoyable evening with Rick Steves, along with our professional sommelier. Support GBH by signing up as a sustaining member, $12.50 a month, to secure your ticket. gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
You rely on GBH and NPR for news that keeps you in the know. And that news is even more important during election season, when the direction of our democracy relies more than ever on an informed public. GBH is where you'll find local reporting on the 5 statewide ballot initiatives, plus timely results and analysis as those results come in. It's election news that cuts through the campaign clutter, and it's only made possible with listener support like you. Please stand with GBH by giving as generously as you can. GBHnews.org or 888-897-9424.
And today we're encouraging you to join GBH as a sustaining member. It's the best way to support your listening. You choose a monthly amount to give, $5, $10, $20, and it's automatically deducted from your bank account or credit card. It's affordable because you pay a little each month, and that monthly contribution, it adds up to significant support for the news you trust and depend on. Enrolling is easy at gbhnews.org, or you can give us a call at 888-897-9424.
How about sign up as a sustainer right now at $12.50 a month, and we will be able to thank you with your very own ticket to a virtual wine tasting with that expert traveler and author that we all know and love so much, Rick Steves. Your ticket is going to include those 6 small bottles of Italian wine, which is plenty for 2 people. It'll be shipped right to your door, and then you'll get an evening of wine tasting instruction, conversation, interactive trivia with Rick Steves, who will have a professional sommelier with him to talk with you about those gorgeous Italian wines you're going to be sipping on. It's Tuesday, February 11th, begins at 8 o'clock p.m. And did I mention it's from the comfort of your own home? That's right. Sign up now before 7 o'clock tonight to take advantage of this opportunity at gbhnews.org, or give us a call at 888-897-9424.
And right now, we are looking to receive 13 contributions to stay on track in just the next 4 minutes. Meeting that goal will help us stay on track for this membership drive and ensure we have the money needed to pay for Boston Public Radio in the months ahead. Please give $10, $15 a month or more on the Sustainer plan and be one of those now 13 people needed to give next 4 minutes. gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
Today, we're asking you to join GBH by giving what you can. Your financial commitment has a big impact on the news and information you hear every day. It's how we pay the bills and keep GBH going strong by getting a lot of listeners to give what they can. So please participate now in ensuring GBH is always on the radio when you give. gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
A lot of people think that public media gets most of its money from the federal government. That's not true, especially here at GBH. More than 70% of our money comes from listener support. We also get money from local business and foundations, which leaves only a tiny percentage of our budget coming from the government, and we like it that way. It's why we're listener-supported public radio and not government-supported radio. Thank you to the support of our members. We don't have to depend on federal funding to keep the news on the air. To make your gift, you can go to gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
And remember, when you give now at $12.50 a month or one time at $150 all at once, you'll get an opportunity to be a part of a virtual wine tasting with travel guru Rick Steves. We're going to ship you 6 small bottles of Italian wine. You'll be able to snuggle into your home on Tuesday, February 11th at 8 o'clock p.m. to enjoy that wine tasting. You'll also be treated to learning more about those wines with a professional sommelier. Oh, and did I mention you'll also get a GBH wine key? It's one of those professional ones that waiters use in the restaurants. It'll be so much fun. We don't want you to miss out. You need to sign up before 7 o'clock today. How about you do that right now at gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
And it's easy to make a contribution to GBH. You may think you don't have the time, but you do. The form is super easy to fill out online. We ask for a bit of contact information and how much you'd like to give. You can join our Sustainer program with a recurring monthly charge to your credit card. Please take those 2 minutes now, and the payoff is GBH all day, every day. You can make your gift at gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424. That's gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424, and thank you.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And the Office of the Massachusetts State Treasurer. The Unclaimed Property Division is holding unclaimed funds from medical bills, uncashed paychecks, savings accounts, and more. To see if you have unclaimed money, you can visit findmassmoney.gov. And The Huntington, presenting Nassim, a theatrical demonstration of how language can both divide and unite us. Each night, a different VIP performs, from Tony Shalhoub to Mike Gorman and more. Tickets at huntingtontheater.org.
I'm Judy Perry from Worcester, and you and I are listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. GBH News with NPR, what matters to you.
I'm Jim Browdy, head on Hour 2 of Boston Public Radio, live from the Boston Public Library. From noon to 1, it's the October edition of Ask the AG with Attorney General Andrea Campbell. On today's agenda, we're 3 weeks out from the election, so we'll get the AG's take, especially on the young black male vote, and hear what her office is doing to protect and bolster voter turnout. Plus, her lawsuit against TikTok, and Milton at the state's highest court, challenging a housing law that affects more than half of Massachusetts' cities and towns.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Have your own question for the Attorney General? You can call or text us at 877-301-8970. Or, if you're in the area, come over to the Boston Public Library in Copley Square and ask the AG in person. Later in the show, it's our Tuesday check-in with CNN's John King. It's all coming up on Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Vice President Kamala Harris is taking her campaign to the key state of Michigan today. NPR's Deepa Shivaram reports Harris rallied supporters in Erie, Pennsylvania last night, where she played a highlight reel of recent comments from her Republican rival, former President Donald Trump.
Harris has been encouraging voters to read Trump's plans and watch his rallies, but in Erie, she brought Trump's remarks to the crowd. Play the tape, Harris said, as a 30-second montage of Trump's remarks played on a large screen in the arena, including when Trump said he thinks the military should be used against the, quote, enemy within, as in his own opponents.
Donald Trump is increasingly unstable and unhinged.
Trump often plays clips of Harris at his rallies, but this was the first time Harris has done the same for her opponent. Deepa Shivaram, NPR News, Erie, Pennsylvania.
Israel is planning to strike Iran in the coming weeks, targeting military sites, according to an official who spoke with NPR. They won't be energy or nuclear infrastructure. Israel says it'll be retaliation for Iran's recent missile attack. Here's NPR's Daniel Estrin.
Israel has informed the Biden administration that it's planning to strike Iran before U.S. elections, November 5th. That's according to an official familiar with the matter who spoke on condition of anonymity to share details about Israel's confidential plans. The U.S. and Israel have been closely coordinating on the nature of Israel's retaliation. The official said some Israeli security officials have advocated for hitting Iran's nuclear facilities, which the U.S. has rejected. The Prime Minister's office said Israel listens to the U.S. position, but would make its final decisions based on Israel's national interests. Daniel Estrin, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
Walgreens plans to shutter more than 1,000 drugstores in the coming years. NPR's Scott Horsley reports on new details of the struggling pharmacy's turnaround plan.
Walgreens says it will close about 500 stores in the U.S. during the current fiscal year and 700 more in the 2 years that follow. The drugstore chain, which had warned of closings during the summer, hopes the move will boost profits and cash flow. Boeing is taking steps to shore up its finances as the jet maker struggles with a lingering slowdown in production and a machinist strike now in its second month. Boeing says it's lined up $10 billion in credit and has the ability to raise more. Scott Horsley, NPR News.
The UN's food agency is alerting the international community that the hunger crisis in southern Africa is the worst it's been in decades. It blames El Nino. The World Food Program says the weather phenomenon has had a crippling impact on tens of millions of people. Crops are failing, it says. And the WFP estimates as many as 21 million children now described as malnourished. It cites 5 countries that have declared national disasters because of drought: Zimbabwe, Zambia, Namibia, Malawi, and Lesotho. You're listening to NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. A new UMass Amherst WCVB poll out this morning shows Republican senatorial candidate John Deaton trailing Democrat Elizabeth Warren by 22 points. 700 Bay Staters were polled between October 3rd and the 10th for this poll. Poll had a margin of error of plus or minus 4.8%. Two candidates have two debates this week. The first is tonight, sponsored by WBZ, the Boston Globe, and WSBK-TV. The second is Thursday night, and that's a GBH-sponsored event along with New England Public Media. The city of Salem has announced that it's launching a new guaranteed income program that'll provide $500 a month to some of the city's low-income residents with no strings attached. GBH's Craig Lamolt has more.
On October 28th, Salem begins taking applications for a lottery to select 100 people living at or below the federal poverty line to be in the program. The city is partnering with Salem State University to research the impact the cash assistance has on the lives of those receiving it. Dominic Pangallo is the city's mayor.
It's not enough to live on, but it's intended to be enough to help people have a little bit more to be able to make ends meet, have that economic mobility, and address the poverty challenges that are contributing to the affordability crisis.
The Salem program is funded by federal money from the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA. Other Massachusetts cities, like Cambridge and Somerville, have also used ARPA money to create similar programs, but they're unsure if they can continue once that one-time funding is spent. Craig Lamolt, GBH News, 89.7.
52 degrees in Boston right now, sun clouds in mid-50s today. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Indeed, designed to be an end-to-end hiring solution for businesses of all sizes to attract, interview, and hire candidates, all from one platform. Learn more at Indeed.com/NPR.
He is Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Yegan. Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, as we do every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, and we are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Really big week for BPR. Tomorrow, astronaut Sunny Williams is going to zoom in from outer space. Jamie just showed me a picture of her. She's talking in the spaceship. Her hair is like 10 inches above her head. You know, it's all flying there with zero gravity.
11:40 tomorrow.
11:40.
She's zooming in.
Yeah, we're very excited about that. And Governor Maura Healey joins us from 1 to 2 on Wednesday for another edition of Ask the Governor. But right now, Jim.
And tomorrow is also, we're doing a debate every single day this week on one of the 5 ballot questions. Tomorrow is question 2,
or the MCAS,
which, should it pass, would eliminate MCAS's graduation requirement. Right now, though, we are joined by the Attorney General, Andrea Joy Campbell, for October's edition of Ask the Attorney General. Attorney General, it's great to see you. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
If you want to call the Attorney General or text in a question, it's 877-301-8970. If you happen to be at the library and would like to ask her a question face-to-face, you go see our colleague Zoe. Hello, Zoe, right there. And Zoe will decide whether or not your question is worthy, is the bottom line. Did I say good to see you?
Yes.
Good to see you again.
Thank you.
I'm
I'll
glad to hear.
receive that.
Thank you.
So, Attorney General, we're always talking about the housing crisis in Massachusetts. It's become an issue in the presidential race as well. And the SJC is considering the law, I think it's almost 4 years old now, that would alleviate some of the state's housing crisis by allowing zoning changes to have more affordable housing around the MBTA stations. Right. And there's a couple of towns that are opposing it. One of them is Milton. The SJC heard the case against Milton, and if Milton wins, what happens then?
Well, we're not there yet. Kudos to my team that recently went into the SJC to argue this very important case. And I'm glad that it's become an issue at the federal level, because affordability is the number one concern that people have here in Massachusetts and across this country. Everything is too expensive. Housing, health care, daycare, groceries, you name it. And as we take on this fight to enforce the MBTA communities law, I'm telling folks to pay attention. Milton is the only municipality that is out of compliance currently. Others that have missed some deadlines still have an opportunity to come into compliance, and we're going to continue to work with them, providing technical assistance as we always have. We did not sue Milton lightly, right? We did this after being reasonable with them, and they refused to come into compliance. So, of course, we ended up in court. And why I'm stressing this is important is because it's one way that we can address the housing crisis here in Massachusetts. It is close to $1 million. The median sales price to buy a home here in Massachusetts is close to $1 million. That affects young people, young families, elders who want to downsize or stay in their community. Everyone should be concerned about this fight and our fight against Milton, but most importantly, to enforce the MBTA communities law is just to make sure we have one tool in our toolkit to bring on solutions to the housing affordability crisis, along with all the other tools. And so I'm confident, after the Supreme Court heard our arguments here, of course, that they will, the Supreme Court, our SJC, our Supreme Court, that they will come out in our favor. And so we're waiting for their response.
But they may not, obviously. And
let's keep it hopeful and optimistic.
But I guess the question is, if they rule for Milton, does this put the whole law into jeopardy?
It absolutely does, and I think the court will take that into consideration. If they rule in Milton's favor and continue to allow Milton to remain in non-compliance, the effect this will have on other municipalities, the confusion it will cause that this law is not mandatory. It says shall means shall, it is mandatory. If they go against that, it not only will create confusion for the municipalities, but most importantly, it will take away a significant tool that a Republican governor and a Democratic legislature came together to pass.
Charlie Baker
to actually help us with housing. And I want to add one other point because I think it's sometimes lost. Many of the housing tools that we have, laws on the books, they're voluntary. They're not mandatory. And so the legislature looked at, are these voluntary tools that we have effective? No, because then it allows municipalities to do whatever they want. This case, this law says, no, you can't do what you want. You can't pick and choose what laws to come into compliance with. And the MBTA communities law is clear that it's mandatory.
So one more time, if they rule against you, I know you hope they don't, and you were convinced they won't. If they do, I think there are 177 communities covered by the law. Am I right so far?
I think it's 176.
Okay, close. And a little less than half.
Oh, maybe it's 177.
Whoa.
You were right,
That's a little embarrassing, isn't it? Okay,
Off by one.
I'm kidding. So a little less than half have signed on, have adopted this thing. Here's the question. Should the court do what you don't want it to do and rule against this law, each of those communities could then vote to opt out of this whole thing, or right away is their vote negated because the law that their vote was based upon is being negated. Do you understand what I'm saying?
A little bit.
I know you don't want to anticipate this, but I guess let me put it more clearly. If the SJC, the Supreme Judicial Court, rules against you, is the vote of the 70-some communities that have adopted this negated as of that moment?
Well, I'm not going to deal in hypotheticals because we're not there yet. And the power of the court is to determine a whole bunch of things. Who knows what they're going to come back with? Okay. What I do want to highlight is Milton is the outlier, and right now we have 78 communities that are in full compliance that frankly need to be getting the attention they deserve, because these communities have gone out to do education with their residents. They have rolled up their sleeves to come into compliance. We're going to celebrate them as we recently did with the governor and Secretary Augustus, and we're going to continue to work to provide technical assistance to municipalities to come into compliance. And for those who are listening, if you live in a community where housing affordability is a crisis, not one community should, of course, respond and sort of have to bear the brunt of responding to this crisis. It's a statewide solution that is required. If you have a public good that is the T in your community, there is an expectation with our technical assistance that you will help us build more housing near public transit, which is good for our housing crisis and, of course, also good for climate justice.
Okay, one last thing before we get to the calls and texts at 877-301-8970. The race for the presidency, only 3 weeks from today is Election Day. I believe early voting starts on Saturday in Massachusetts. One of the issues that's putting Kamala Harris in a tough spot, somebody with whom you have a very close relationship, we learned a few weeks ago, personal relationship in addition to a professional one, is while black women are just as faithful to the Democratic ticket as they have been for years, black men, particularly young black men, are not supporting Harris in the same numbers that they supported Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden. Here's a little bit of what Barack Obama had to say about this, the President Obama, when he was in Pittsburgh criticizing black men who he said make excuses for not voting for Vice President Harris. Here's Obama.
And you're coming up with all kinds of reasons and excuses. Part of it makes me think that, well, you just aren't feeling the idea of having a woman as president. And so now you're thinking about sitting out or even supporting somebody who has a history of denigrating you because you think that's a sign of strength. because that's what being a man is? Putting women down? That's not acceptable.
How do you, one, I'd like your thoughts about what the President Obama had to say, but how do you explain particularly young black men not supporting this ticket in the same sort of numbers as I say that they supported both Clinton and Biden?
Well, I'm always clear, or skeptical, I should say, of polls and surveys of people, including people of color, because I often question who are you going to, where are you going, and who are you talking to. I know what is abundantly clear to me is that voters of color, black men, black women, people of color, have an apathy with respect to voter engagement, civic engagement, and I don't blame them. And so I'm going to push back on our former president, who I have the utmost respect for. I'm not going to blame them. You have politicians and candidates that go into communities promising they're going to do certain things, and they don't deliver. And they also promise things they will never be able to deliver on, that they're going to eradicate poverty, for example, eradicate violence. No one person can do that overnight. Absolutely not. And what I respect and love about Kamala Harris, who I am close with, is that she has done the work as Attorney General, as a district attorney, of course as Vice President, and as a senator in the past. Where I can lift up her work is as AG. You have significant tools, for example, to take on consumer protection, to help wipe out student loan debt, which the last I checked is one way to close the racial wealth gap. She did that to make sure that folks are not discriminated against as they go out to get a loan to start a business or to get a loan to buy a home, which of course builds wealth. So this recent agenda that she put out, specifically focused on black men, I applaud.
Yesterday.
Because it builds on her leadership in the past and says, I'm going to fight for you, I'm going to listen to you, and I'm going to make sure that I do things that are actually in response. And that plan says, I'm going to give out 1 million loans that are all forgivable, up to $20,000 to black men who are seeking to be entrepreneurs. I'm going to make sure that discrimination doesn't continue to be a barrier to you getting the resources that you deserve in order to grow a business or to grow your wealth.
Why didn't you said you were talking about not delivering in the past on campaign promises. Why didn't the Biden-Harris administration do in its 4 years the things that Harris is proposing that should be done yesterday?
I think she sought to do some of that. But let's be clear, Kamala Harris is not Joe Biden. You're vice president, you serve as at the pleasure of the president. And there was a lot of things she did that focused on this population. Now she's running to be president, where she has significant power, leeway to craft her plans for a population of folks, including black men and black women, and to actually demonstrate not only she's done it in the past to close this racial wealth gap, but also will continue to work to do just that, not blaming folks for not being civically engaged, but saying, please take a risk on me. Take a risk and vote for me because I'm going to deliver. And most importantly, let's not forget that the person on the other side who was promising things that we know he will not deliver on, it's a total charade. This was a gentleman who, of course, in New York with his father, discriminated specifically against black residents, including black men, in terms of access to housing. The same gentleman who also discriminated against black residents in terms of access to capital or to banking when he had the power to do otherwise. So I just say to folks, do not trust what he's saying. Take a risk on this woman who will deliver for you and do so much more. And if she doesn't accomplish that in 4 years, then you have the right to go back out and exercise your right to vote to come up with a different choice. But in this moment in time, the contrast is stark between who will deliver for our people and who will not. And I'll add, yes, she is a black woman, and she stands in that, but she will never use that to take for granted this idea that black people will just vote for black people. She's going to do the work to earn their support. And I respect her wholeheartedly for that, too.
The number is 877-301-8970.
Yeah, before we get to the calls, I just want to mention, you got these new informational flyers for college kids, new citizens, incarcerated individuals. What's that all about?
So voting, obviously, just not only talking about Kamala Harris and the top of the ticket, how important it is to get out and vote, and to do something, as Michelle Obama said, people vote here in Massachusetts, but most importantly, if you have time, call into these battleground states and help mobilize other people, mobilize your families, everybody you know, because this is the most important election of our lifetime. But we didn't forget that here in Massachusetts, we also want to continue to mobilize people. So we're telling folks, you have the right to vote if you're over 18. voting. Even if you were formerly incarcerated and you were out, you have the right to vote. And folks who are inside, the same. We're working with houses of correction, the Department of Correction as well. There is an exception, of course, if you have been convicted of a felony.
Yes.
So we're putting out information on what these rights are to make it clear to folks that they have the right to vote. You can go on our website. We'll put some information on social media as well to get folks to not only register to vote, the deadline is August 26th here in Massachusetts, but also to encourage our people to get out and vote. Your voices matter. I know for me personally, we cannot do the work we do if it's not from a bottom-up approach. Top-down doesn't work, and the only way your voices are really heard is if you exercise your right to vote here in Massachusetts.
Let's go. Can we go to somebody to start who's in the audience here? Is Lashana in the neighborhood? Lashana, please come up to the mic. You're on with the Attorney General.
Say
Welcome.
your name correctly.
Yes, my name is Lashina Butler. Lashina Jones Butler.
My
Good
apologies.
to see you, Lashina.
And I have a question for Andrea. Because Andrea.
Yeah.
So us in the Black community come to your office, and we notice like y'all speak of Black and brown and color, but who's really doing the work for reparations and to giving the colored people what they deserve because we're suffering? And then how come there's like no colored people in your office to take racial discrimination complaints where y'all feel as though we have to give you so much information like you don't know that we are racially discriminated against and you don't fight for us at all? So
Shana, we got it. We should let the Attorney General respond to both your issues.
Thank you for your
Go ahead,
question.
Attorney General.
I will say I work with an incredible team. We have over 700 lawyers and staff, fully staffed. We have an office in Boston, one in Springfield, one in New Bedford, and also one in Worcester. And I want to discount those other offices that do a lot of work. I will say people who work hard, who are underpaid, and frankly dedicated to service. It is a diverse team. What I do recognize, I want to be candid, I inherited a team where we have to, of course, make sure that the office reflects the communities we serve. And I'm working on that. But this idea, I won't say, but I'm not going to negate what you said. I get that struggle. I live in Mattapan now. I have loved ones as I stand here as AG who are currently incarcerated. I share my story openly. I stand here as AG with both parents who are deceased, all my grandparents who were deceased, a twin brother who died while in the custody of the Department of Correction. I've never forgotten where I come from and why I do this work. And so I'll give you some examples of how we're working to address the inequities you're talking about. I mentioned housing earlier. I can't remember the last time an attorney general sued a municipality to bring about better housing and better housing outcomes for the constituents in Massachusetts. I can't remember the last time an AG focused on student loan debt. That is $1 billion issue right here in Massachusetts, affecting millions of residents, but mainly single Black women households. Targeted that because it's one way to close a racial wealth gap. We are currently, for the first time in the history of the office, we convened a group of folks to talk about those who are formerly incarcerated and currently incarcerated. The first time the office ever held a convening of those dealing with reentry issues, not under a reentry umbrella that's separate and apart, under our economic portfolio work. So I'm only in year 2, and already we've gotten the Elder Justice Unit off the ground, the Reproductive Justice Unit off the ground, the Gun Violence Prevention Unit off the ground, the Police Accountability Unit off the ground, and so much more. I never take it for granted. We're going to keep fighting the fight. So I'm not sure what your individual experience is like. I am happy to follow up and to make sure that as you engage with our office, we're helping you as best we can. We do the best we can with a sense of urgency, because I, along with the people I serve with, have never forgotten why we do this work.
Let's take some calls.
Sue in Hopkinton, thank you for calling.
Hi, Sue.
Hi, Jim. Hi, Marjorie. Thank you so much for taking my call, Attorney General.
Thank you.
My question is, I'm a longtime nurse at Brigham and Women's Hospital, and we were in contract negotiations, as some of you may have known. We thought we settled. Mostly our focus was to have a more equitable health plan. We were paying a lot of money for the Mass General Brigham health care insurance, which is pricey. The only other option was Harvard Pilgrim. Many of us opted. We were given the opportunity to move to Harvard Pilgrim, which was, for my family anyway, much more reasonable, financially affordable. So we were supposed to make our choices very soon, meaning tomorrow, and now we are being told that Harvard Pilgrim Health Plan is not in accordance with state law, and each one of us who are 18 and over are going to be charged $2,000 per person per tax season because Harvard Pilgrim is not in accordance with the law. And we feel like, as nurses, and there's over 4,000 of us trying to figure this out, we feel as though we weren't, during contract negotiations, told this.
So, Sue, if I may, do you have a question for the Attorney General?
Like, what should we do? Is that, in fact, factual? Because Harvard Pilgrim isn't telling us whether or not they cannot tell us the truth, whether or not we are going to be charged $2,000.
Let's hear what the Attorney General has to say, Sue. Thank you for your call.
Thank you, Sue. If you could stay on, I'm not in the weeds right now, obviously, with respect to your recent conversations with Brigham, but obviously one is personal for you and it may be affecting others. But if you could stay on, Martin from my team is here. We'll follow up on this, but please don't hang up, and we'll sort of see what we can do to help.
We'll get your contact information, Sue, so do stay on hold if you don't mind. We appreciate it. 877-301-8970.
Lori from
Lori?
Berlin?
Salem?
Salem?
One of them.
Yes, Berlin.
Okay, Berlin. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Thank you.
Hi, Marjorie, George, and Attorney General.
Wait a second. George? George?
It's Jim, Lori, but that's
kidding.
okay.
I'm only kidding. It's close enough. It's fine. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Lori. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you.
Wait, is this Lori? Is this Lori?
This is Lori.
Okay, hi,
yes.
Lori.
Yeah, I'm George. Go ahead. Go ahead, Lori.
No. So, on September 5th, the Mass Alliance Against Predatory Lending provided the Supreme Judicial Court with 20,000 plus public record documentation that the banks had started eviction cases with the wrong bank listed. In the past, you have said you would help us with redlining. Now we're more
Hold on for a second.
Okay, it's better.
She can hear it. Go ahead, Lori. I'm sorry we had a sound problem, but continue.
Now we're more into reverse redlining, where they're giving predatory loans and taking the homes. Will you help us?
So, Lori, if you could stay on, would love to hear more details specifically about this, but whether it's reverse redlining or mortgage companies that are doing all types of engaging in deceptive practices to get people pushed out of their home or to take their money, we are absolutely prioritizing that. We actually just had a settlement with one servicer who came back. We call them zombie mortgages.
Yeah. Tell us about that.
Frankly, they're no longer operating in Massachusetts. A zombie mortgage is back in around the housing crisis, right? 2008, 2009, people were coming out of that, they're buying homes. So they have they would typically go in and get two mortgages. So sometimes they didn't know there were two mortgages. One was for most of the mortgage to buy the house. The second was for the down payment. What folks are now doing, savvy, is to try to go back and find the paperwork for those zombie mortgages. We call them zombie because people literally thought this debt was wiped out. They were done. They're living in their home. And there was a woman in Quincy who shared her story. It's paying her monthly mortgage every month. This is a different service provider, but paying her monthly mortgage every month, and all of a sudden people show up to try to push her out of her home. So this particular service provider, Franklin Credit. We won a settlement. We were going to get these folks back their money. They can no longer operate here in Massachusetts, no longer pull this debt that people have thought is completely wiped out. They haven't received any statements. That's why you really think it's wiped out, and then someone comes out of nowhere to say, no, you owe us hundreds of thousands of dollars. We said, no, not here in Massachusetts. So we're getting folks the restitution back on this, and also anyone who's faced potential foreclosure on this will also make sure that they have the resources they need to hopefully get back into housing.
Did you say you wanted her to stay on?
Yes,
yeah,
Lori, stay on because yours is very specific.
Stay on. We'll get your contact information to a representative of the Attorney General's office.
Our texters are reminding us that there still are a few more days to register to vote, October 26th.
Yes, October 26th.
October 26th.
It's the deadline.
So you still have time.
And you can do it in person at your local election official by 5 or online.
Attorney General, credit to our colleagues at New England Public Media in Western Massachusetts. They've been following this story for years. Your predecessor is now the governor did a report on abuse by priests and others in non-Boston archdiocese a couple of years ago. You, when asked about it, promised transparency. It's been several years. Why has this report not been released?
It's in the courts. That's all I can say right now.
Why is it in the courts? What are the courts
That's
up
all
to?
I can say right now in terms of whether or not it can be released.
Well, I'm not asking you to give us content, obviously, but why do the courts have anything to do with whether or not a report your office did, should be released to the public?
So I took over, got this report, and now it's in the courts to determine whether or not it can be released. And that's all I can say.
But who? I don't mean to be a pain in the neck. Who even brought it? It was done internally. Why are the courts? I'm not trying to be difficult. I just don't. Why are the courts even involved?
To be able to create the report in the first place, it relies on numerous sources, including grand jury proceedings. You got to be careful with grand jury, which typically, of course, is secretive, and there's a special way in which these proceedings happen. In order to then get it out in the public view, you have to get permission if all parties don't agree to release it. It's currently in the courts.
What kind of time frame are we talking about?
That's up to the court. I will say I do believe in transparency. I do believe that if you have reports and you can release it, to do so. So I would just say, ask the public to continue to be patient with me. And I have to be clear. I obviously come before this from the city council where I had greater discretion in what I could say and what I could release. This is very different. The position, while it may have a greater impact in the work, and it does, is not, I can only share so much. And so in this particular instance, I can only share so much, but I ask the public to be patient, and we will be transparent when we get to that point.
One last thing about patience. There's an organization, I know I speak for Marjorie, we have huge admiration for Bishop Accountability, and they've done some wonderful work through decades of this. One of their leaders is quoted in a story, says, it means the failure to release the report. It means that those priests are not going to be a danger to children anymore because this is all out in the open. Obviously, the flip of that is, as long as it's not out in the open, there may be priests who are found to be responsible for sexual violence against children or others whose names are not public, and they may be tending to people right now who are at risk.
I take sexual abuse allegations, I'm a mom of 2 boys, very seriously, by whoever. In this particular case, I inherited a report that was completed, sitting there. And now I'm doing what I can to see what we can do in terms of releasing it. But that being said, it's not up to me personally.
Yeah. Maybe the archdiocese
It has to go through a process, and that process now involves the court. And folks will know when it concludes where we end up. I will definitely report that back.
That's a good last question, though. Are the 3 archdioceses involved, the ones that are objecting to its release?
I don't know if I can even say that.
Okay.
Well, it's a good guess.
But if I can't, I'll say this.
Who else could
I
it
will
be?
follow up based on what I can share. As of right now, I can say it's in the courts.
Okay. We have another audience question from Paul.
Paul.
Are you going to, do we have to take a break first? We can take a break first, and then we can go. We'll take a break first, and we'll come back. Paul, hold on. We have a quick break, and we'll be right back. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Boston Children's Hospital, ranked the #1 pediatric hospital in the world by Newsweek. Boston Children's, where the world comes for answers. bostonchildrens.org/answers. And Massachusetts Maritime Academy, the Commonwealth's leadership university. They offer a hands-on learning environment, helping to prepare their students to be global leaders in careers on land or at sea. Maritime.edu.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We're live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're speaking with the Attorney General, who's kind enough to join us for an hour every month to answer our questions and yours. The lines are sort of full. They are full at 877-301-8970. One will open up soon. And in the interim, you can text if you have a question.
Hey, Paul, what's your question for the Attorney General?
Thank you.
Hi, Paul. Good to see you again.
Hello again. Good to see you again. Thanks for stopping by. I noticed that you're going to be at the Climate Beacon Conference later on in the week. I'll be there.
Awesome.
My question is, what can we do to force the utility companies to provide 100% clean electricity, that is solar and wind, not nuclear, as you know very well? And also the secondary question is, why can't we have as much solar as we want? Why can't we put up as much solar as we want? For example, if we wanted to put it on the roof, they tell us how much we can put up, and tough luck, and the utility companies won't pay us for extra power we generate. We just get these useless credits. So what can we do about all that stuff?
Thank you, Paul. Attorney General.
Thank you so much.
I probably need a whole nother hour to address that, Paul, and I'll, of course, be more focused at the Climate Beacon Conference, which I'll be there with the team. So one area I want to highlight is the AG's office is the ratepayer for the state, and most folks don't know that. So on this conversation actually around affordability, utility bills are too expensive. Our office plays a direct role in that, in challenging and, of course, working with utilities, but also challenging where rate increases that are proposed are too high. We go before the DPU, which is a state agency, and it's a back and forth. It requires experts, a lot of resources at different times to get rates that are affordable, reasonable, most importantly, reasonable for our constituents. So that involves working with utilities here and there, right? We are still in a transition to clean energy. It is not going to happen overnight. And frankly, what this division is responsible for is to ensure that as it happens, it doesn't happen on the backs of poorer residents, residents of color, those in Western Mass, rural communities that often feel left out. So that advocacy is happening every day. But it involves the DPU. It involves our siting board, which is also a state agency. So it's not always entirely up to our control in terms of decision making, but I will ensure you, Paul, and others, we are fighting, fighting like hell to ensure that the rates that people are presented with are the most reasonable, while also, of course, protecting this idea that you still need resources to run, obviously, energy into households. So we're doing our best.
Thank you
I'll
for the
share
question.
more at the conference, which is this Friday, for sure, on specifics. And that's just one part of our climate and environmental justice work.
So, Attorney General,
Thank
congratulations. I know it was you and the state police and some other law enforcement agencies were all involved in this arresting for dealing drugs, a major drug trafficking operation. But I was curious, it's a wiretapping investigation, but I wondered, if you're one of these people that was living in one of these apartments in Methuen, where there was a lot of drug dealing in these multiple apartments in this building, I wonder what happens. Do people call up and say there's a lot of people running in and out of the place next door, or I hear and they had guns in there and stuff like that? How does that happen?
So, first of all, I just have to say I'm so proud of the Crim Bureau and the office. We've been talking a lot about the civil work that we do, but we have a criminal bureau that works really hard, including with our enterprise and major crimes division. We have a state police unit within the office. All of these folks work hard, and we often do investigations that last a long time. So this recent one in Lawrence and Methuen lasted 11 months.
Wow.
Folks.
Wow.
Talk about public servants. They didn't have a summer, right? They were up on a wire in a community where if you went into that community and talk about racial equity, predominantly people of color, black and brown folks who have been complaining for years about the drug activity, the open drug market in this community, elder folks taking out their trash, creeping into their homes because they're afraid, children going into their housing but walking through a drug deals or something happening in real time. So I'm proud of this team that gets out every single day to take guns and drugs off the street and to say that we're not going to accept that, right? Every community deserves to be safe. Every community deserves to be drug and gun free, especially poor communities, just as much as any other community. And so this team was up on a wire. They just came down. This is actually
What do
involved.
you mean up on a wire?
It may sound like the wire, but an actual wire where you are monitoring, and I'm renewing affidavits for wires.
On the wiretap, you mean?
Exactly.
They weren't up in the air.
No, on the wiretap.
Okay.
But I will say 11 folks were arrested. That is currently moving through the courts. 10 tons and tons of drugs, of course.
Yeah, fentanyl.
And fentanyl, other types of drugs too, and weapons, of course, confiscated. And I will say, while it involved our office, we do this in a regional network of folks. So it involved other law enforcement agencies. The collaboration is quite remarkable. So close to 200 officers were involved.
Wow.
And it's a big takedown. But the other piece that I want to stress, and I think the Crim Bureau would say the same. Yes, we want to target what is happening in terms of illicit activity in these communities, but we also want to address the root causes of what creates that in the first place, the violence that we see. So it does mean bringing in resources on the jobs front, on the economic front. There's some of that we can do. We can't do that by ourselves. It does also mean taking on the health disparities, the lack of clean air, environmental injustice in these same communities. The educational outcomes are typically abysmal. Our Children's Justice Unit working with school districts to address that. So this holistic approach through a public health lens is what the office does every single day. And this is just one example of what this division and what this Crim Bureau does on a regular basis to protect our people. Because the last I checked, I don't care what tangible things we provide folks. If you don't feel safe in your community, if you feel targeted because of hate or anything else, well, what good is it for? And so we're taking on hate, we're taking on this violence, and we're taking on drugs as well.
And when you say open drug market, so people would be coming downstairs and they would see people buying drugs right in front of them.
If you were to go and interview the folks that lived in some of the housing developments there, as some remarked when the arrests were happening, there were folks who came out to thank those officers, probably with tears in their eyes, for finally someone doing something. Okay. This is what is the state of affairs in that community. So I think if you were to go out and interview those folks and ask them what they were experiencing, the stories would be depressing, would be hard to hear. So I'm proud of this portfolio of work, which is just as important, of course, as all the other work in helping our folks feel safe.
We're getting a lot of texts concerning the trooper-to-be, Enrique Delgado Garcia, and the next call is asking for an update. Rama, somewhere in central Massachusetts, it says, I guess. Welcome to the show. You're on with the Attorney General. Hi. Hello?
Rama, is it?
Yeah,
okay.
He's not there.
But
you know,
we can
as long as you brought it up, you were at the graduation for the latest class of troopers, and according to the Globe, you spoke directly to the dead trooper's family when you were Enrique Delgado Garcia's family when you were talking. What'd you say?
Well, a couple of things. This is a horrific case. I cried probably like many others when they got the news. He was 25 years old, training to become a state trooper, a job he dreamed of holding to serve us and to serve the Commonwealth. It is horrific. It is sad. It is depressing. I've met the family. I met them at the wake, and of course, extended my condolences. Folks who know me know I'm a praying woman. I believe in God and the grace of God, so I continue to pray for them. And, of course, appointed a special investigator to look into the circumstances of this whole case, to have the independence that he would need, this is David Meyer, to conduct a thorough investigation. And that will take time. And so I said to the family then, and they understand this also through their lawyer, I thank them in advance for their patience. And I thank the community as well, who he used to work with in Worcester when he was he was a victim witness advocate at Worcester DA's office. So I thank the community in advance for their patience. What I added at the funeral for the men and women who just graduated as a part of the new state police class, who are now getting their cruisers and hitting the streets to protect all of us, that they too feel the same pain and suffering that the family does. This was a classmate. For months, they were in training together, seeking to accomplish something and to, of course, serve all of us in terms of public safety and protection. This is a calling that they feel that's bigger than them. They're not doing it because you make the biggest bucks. They're doing it because they truly believe in service and protection, just as Enrique did. So I acknowledge that pain and suffering that this particular class has felt, that I think at moments has been lost in the media narrative. I saw them exiting his wake, and then, of course, they attended the funeral, and the tears rolling down his classmates' eyes. They were devastated, and they continue to be devastated. But they're rolling up their sleeves with courage to still serve us, honoring Enrique in the process. And I said, you can't have that be lost. They cared deeply about this young man, as we all do, but they knew him personally, and they knew him up close, and you develop friendships. And in this moment in time when we are asking for accountability, which I believe in, and transparency from the state police, yes, we can have that while also acknowledging the suffering of this class and also how tough it is to be a state trooper. The case I just mentioned, these were folks doing undercover operations, going into harm's way every day at all hours in order to take down folks who were causing significant harm and pain in that community in Lawrence and Methuen and surrounding communities. So you can have both. And so I actually pushed back even on the media. I said the media has the power of the pen, social media, the platform. And so how we frame things is really important. And in this moment in time, I thought it was really important to name that for these recruits who work so hard to graduate as a part of this class.
Could you answer one quick thing that I should know the answer to? Is David Meyer independent, meaning does he make his own decision and announces it, or does he report to you and you either approve or disapprove or amend what he...
He's within my office, but he has significant independence. And what I mean by that is we will give him resources as he needs it, but he's going to form his own investigatory team, which he's in the process of doing. He's going to conduct his investigation, go out to do the witnesses all on his own. He's also going to bring any particular charges. It's all in his wheelhouse.
So you don't have to sign off on his determination?
If anything, we are just there as support and any additional
Understood.
Resources that he would need because of that conflict that existed.
I'm sorry, Shirley and Newton, you're on with the Attorney General. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
Wow, thanks for having me on. My name is Shiley, actually, not Shirley.
What's your name again?
Shiley. Newton.
So sorry. So sorry.
No, that's quite all right. So my question is about the new legislation that requires towns that are near a T-stop to create more housing. So I live in Newton Center, and we have one green line, I think it's a D line, that runs east and west, and that's it. That's the only T stop we have, a T line that we have. And it basically does nothing to get anybody who lives here around locally. And everyone knows that everyone who's ever driven down Route 9 will tell you that the traffic in this area is horrible. So I wonder if the state, when they're making these determinations about what accessible communities are, if there's been any consideration made for traffic amelioration.
Shirley, thanks.
So it's a great question. Even, coming from the city council, as we approved development projects, developers were often frustrated because they wanted the transportation and infrastructure and the streets to be improved at the same time. And yes, that's on the city, that's on the state to be able to do that. I think the governor would say, and municipal leaders, they are investing in that and they still have work to do. But what I love about the MBTA Communities Law is not only do I think it's mandatory to help us address this housing crisis, it affords municipalities great flexibility and discretion. It literally gives them the ability to choose where is best in their municipality to create this housing that is close to transportation, that allows it to be, of course, for families and others to help us alleviate this crisis. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach, and the regulations get that. And at the same time, I absolutely support the need to, of course, improve our transportation infrastructure, the T as well. I agree there's more work that can be done.
That's the Attorney General. She's with us for another handful of minutes.
Let's go to Mary in the car. Hi, Mary.
Hello, Mary.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. First-time caller.
Thank you.
And I realized that when I turned on my car, the Attorney General was talking about the housing situation, and I understand that it's a crisis here. And I live in Melrose, where it's a very quiet neighborhood, an old neighborhood. Our house is 130 years old. And there's a street that offshoots ours that abuts conservation land. And we have been fighting for the last 5 years to keep it protected because there is a house up there that the Sons wanted to sell and build multiple housing up there. And then they sold it, and it became in the hands of developer. They want to build a 34-unit on this dead-end street with 6 houses on it, with something like 74 parking spots in a very quiet, old neighborhood.
Mary, what's the question?
The question is, do you just build wherever because you can, or is there any, because I mean, it even went to the state and the mayor's written letters. So
we got it. I think
quiet.
we got it. Let's hear what the Attorney General has to say, Mary. Thank you.
I don't know about that specific project. That is distinct. So where I have my lane is to enforce the laws of the Commonwealth. And the MBTA communities law is a law that was passed by a legislature, and now my job is to enforce it. So that is my focus. On individual development projects, that is up to the local municipality, the local elected officials. Some have zoning boards, et cetera. So I'm not sure what this is specifically, Mary, so that is for that municipality. My job is to enforce the MBTA communities law, to provide technical assistance to municipalities to help create that housing. And I will add the state, back to, I think it was Shiley's question, not Shirley, was the state is providing resources and funding to help with this infrastructure. They get, as you bring about more housing, you have to improve the T, you have to improve infrastructure. So I stood with the governor, Secretary Augustus, the LG recently on a Catalyst grant, other resources that are being made available by the state to help with infrastructure. Milton even took advantage of some of that funding when they were creating their plans. So we want to make sure that more municipalities that are coming into compliance have access to those resources, and we will.
How are you voting on the 5 ballot questions?
I don't know how I'm voting on all of them yet. The mushroom one has me a little still confused, but I heard you're going to have a little debate.
We did. You missed it.
Okay, so I'll have to go back.
Which ones have you made your mind up on?
I don't want to get in the middle of that. So let me just, question 1, I'm not sure yet, but I will say this. It's obviously, I believe in auditing the legislature. You just have to do it within constitutional constraints. Elimination of MCAS, I was here before and I said I'm voting no on that. Unionization of drivers. Yes, it actually builds upon...
That's question 3.
Question 3. It actually builds upon the work we did in our historic settlement for Uber and Lyft drivers to give them flexibility. And tip workers, absolutely voting yes, because tip workers also should have access to the minimum wage. The last I checked, you need good resources to be able to live and survive here in Massachusetts.
You know, we have a text about that too, because we had the debate about the tip wages yesterday, and there was a lot of talk about wage theft that people. And a texter wants to know how often you hear cases about this and what they can do about it, because it was brought up repeatedly yesterday.
And we have a minute, Attorney General.
Wage theft.
Wage theft in the restaurant industry. Yeah.
So wage theft is huge in hospitality industry. We have a whole division, Fair Labor Division, that actually goes out to enforce wage theft against not only those who are employees, against our adults, but also our children. We're also prioritizing child labor law enforcement. And so this is in the millions, sadly. People going to work and not getting paid in the millions. But because I have a minute left, I have to name this.
What?
We are seeking your feedback. Val, wave your hand, Val.
Hello, Val.
Mary, wave your hand, Mary. They are from our Elder Justice Unit, which we just got off the ground to focus on all things elders. And they have been walking around here, but also online and on social media. For the first time in the history of the office, we have put out, we want folks' responses on regulations for assisted living residences.
Oh, yes.
This is the first time in the history of the office that we're actually doing this. There's no current regulations for assisted living. So this may mean whether it is people not getting the services they said they're going to get, improper fees. So this consumer protection work in the context of assisted living facilities, important. The regulations will help us be able to do that work. So we're seeking feedback from folks. The form is online, on social media, or you can call the office, because we're doing work that is responsive to our elders.
What's your website, quickly?
mass.gov/AGO.
Mass.gov/AGO.
Or people can call 617-727-8400.
Nice to see you, Attorney General.
It's great to see all of you.
Thank you so much, Attorney General Andrea Campbell.
Yeah, next time we talk to you, be after the election. Oh, my God.
20 days to go. 20 days. Make sure you get out and vote.
Nervous wreck.
Do something. Call a battleground state, Marjorie.
Call a battleground state, yeah.
There you go.
We've been speaking with Attorney General of Massachusetts, Andrea Joy Campbell. Thank you very much, Attorney General, for coming in. We much appreciate it. Coming up after the noon news, CNN's John King. He's going to tell us about the state of the election. And Kamala Harris's apparent problem, particularly with young black male voters. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
This GBH Fall Membership Drive. We're taking just a few moments right now to ask for your contribution. That's how public radio works. Most of the money we spend to run the station comes from listener contributions. We're asking for yours now at gbhnews.org, or you can give us a call at 888-897-9424. I'm Liz Lavoie, here with Melissa Jones.
Support GBH right now, and we'll thank you with a ticket to a virtual wine tasting with this guy who's an expert traveler and author, Rick Steves. You might have heard about him. We are so excited to join with him again this year on Tuesday, or next year technically, Tuesday, February 11th at 8 o'clock p.m. And here's what you get. You'll join Rick online virtually, but we'll ship 6 bottles of small bottles of wine to you to your home, so you can snuggle up with your favorite wine fan and listen to Rick and a sommelier tell you all about the wine. You'll have wine tasting instruction, conversation. There'll even be some trivia. It's going to be amazing. And you need to sign up before 7 o'clock tonight in order to take advantage of this offer. What is it? Make a contribution as a sustainer at $12.50 a month, or a one-time gift of $150, and we'll thank you with this amazing opportunity. gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
And right now we're looking to receive 15 contributions in the next 5 minutes to keep on track in this hour. Please sign up as a sustaining member, or maybe make a one-time gift. The money you give now will help fund the news in the months ahead. Be one of those 15 contributions in the next 4 minutes now. gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
Like Jim and Marjorie were just saying, we all know the election is fast approaching. GBH has you covered. From the 5 statewide ballot initiatives to the seats in the U.S. House and the Senate, we're bringing you reporting from the GBH newsroom, key interviews on Boston Public Radio, and the impactful analysis on Morning Edition and All Things Considered. It's local news that keeps you in the know throughout this entire election season. You can make it happen when you support it by giving $5, $10, $20 per month right now. gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
Today, we hope you'll take a moment to reflect on how much you've listened to GBH and Boston Public Radio in the past few months, and then become a member, or maybe renew your membership if it's been a while. You'll be joining a group of committed listeners who make a difference in our community by ensuring that GBH stays on the radio here in Boston. Make your gift at gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
Okay, we've got 12 contributions to go in the next 3 minutes to stay on track for this hour. The success of this membership drive depends on all of us joining together. Please help pay for the news by making your contribution now. gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
And a reminder, support GBH now, and we'll thank you with a ticket to the virtual wine tasting with expert traveler and author Rick Steves. You'll get 6 small bottles of wine, plenty for 2 people, shipped directly to your door, and that's, save the date, for Tuesday, February 11th, beginning at 8 p.m. Support GBH as a sustaining member, $12.50 a month, or make a one-time gift of $150. You can do that at gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
If you're already a sustaining member to GBH, thank you. Now is a great time to add a few more bucks to your existing membership. It's easy to do. It won't make a big difference to your bank account, but it will make a big difference in what you hear every day on GBH. How about increasing to $12.50 a month and getting that great opportunity to do the virtual wine tasting with Rick Steves that Liz was just telling you about? You can do that at gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
Even though the world, we are still facing challenges, meeting them effectively and with hope for a better, more connected world means we must be prepared with the information needed to move forward together. That's where GBH comes in. GBH does the work of gathering the facts and information on the stories that matter, and the financial support of listeners makes that possible. Show your support at gbhnews.org or give us a call at 888 897-9424.
We've got a quick thank you to a friend in Salt Lake City who wrote, I'm a transplant from Vermont to Salt Lake City, Utah, and have lived here for 30 plus years. I listen to Jim and Marjorie every single weekday, have done so for decades. The show provides the right mix of humor and factually correct news. Keep up the great work. Thank you so much to you, our friend out in Salt Lake. How about you? We're looking for just 8 more people to wrap up this hour in the next few seconds. You can be a part of that when you go to gbhnews.org and do that now.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And the trustees, presenting Roots and Resilience. Jim Braude and Marjorie Egan lead a conversation about a greener, more resilient Boston, October 17th at 6 at High Street Place. Learn more at thetrustees.org/roots. And Mass General Brigham Health Plan, ranked number 1 in member satisfaction among commercial health plans in Massachusetts by J.D. Power for the 2nd consecutive year. Details at mgbhp.org/everyday.
Trusted. Local. News. You're listening to 89.7 WGBH, HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. GBH News with NPR. What matters to you.
I'm Jim Braude, ahead on Hour 3 of Boston Public Radio, live from the Boston Public Library. Kicking things off, we talk with CNN's chief national correspondent, the pride of Dorchester, John King. He'll zoom in with the reflections on his recent sit-down with black voters in a swing state, talking about the Kamala Harris campaign and why this race continues to be a dead heat.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then we open it up to you. 39 minutes. That's how long former President Trump subjected supporters to at a rally last night where he performed his strange, maybe you could call it dancing, awkward swaying, whatever. It got us to thinking about the role of dancing in our lives. Are you dragged to the dance floor at weddings by your significant other? Or do you sit it all out like a potted plant? Or, even though you have no rhythm, do you just go anyway? Dancing and You. That's ahead on Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. A Trump town hall in Oaks, Pennsylvania last night went from a standard Q&A session to an impromptu music fest. At times, former President Trump swayed and closed his eyes as the operatic voices of Pavarotti played over speakers. It was a side of Trump the public doesn't often see. NPR's Danielle Kurtzleben explains what led to the unusual event.
The town hall part of the event lasted nearly an hour and was moderated by South Dakota Republican Governor Kristi Noem. The event was paused twice for incidents in which the crowd called for a medic. Audience members shouted that the room was too hot. Later, Trump ended the question segment and asked the audience to stick around.
You could sit and listen. We'll play a couple of songs. Some of you will be a little warm, but that's okay. It's not a bad thing. And if you want, we're going to do that, but I think it would be beautiful. Don't you think? A little different.
I think it'd be amazing, sir.
Nice to have imagination. Isn't it a nice thing to have imagination?
Trump remained on stage for more than half an hour while an array of songs played. Danielle Kurtzleben, NPR News.
Vice President Harris is scheduled to campaign today in Detroit, Michigan, to take part in a live iHeartRadio interview. Hurricane Helene recovery is stretching into yet another day in North Carolina. This comes after officials say workers with the Federal Emergency Management Agency temporarily halted some operations because of threats over the weekend. The decision stemmed from false information that the federal agency is unable to adequately respond to storm victims. Alongside FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell, Governor Roy Cooper issued blunt message today.
There's still a persistent and dangerous flow of misinformation about recovery efforts in Western North Carolina that can lead to threats and intimidation, breeds confusion, and demoralizes storm survivors and response workers alike.
The warning comes after the Rutherford County Sheriff's Office reported that an armed man had threatened FEMA officials outside a grocery store that was being used as a storm relief site. Boeing is seeking to raise billions of dollars to replenish its cash flow. NPR's Joel Rose reports the troubled plane maker is dealing with the fallout from an ongoing strike by its machinists union.
Boeing told federal regulators it plans to raise up to $25 billion by selling stock and other securities, and that it's opened a new $10 billion line of credit. Those announcements come as the company is losing $1 billion a month, according to one estimate, because of a strike that has effectively shut down the factories where the company assembles its most popular jets. About 33,000 workers, mostly in the Pacific Northwest, have been on strike for over a month as they push for higher wages and better retirement benefits. Last week, Boeing said it would lay off about 10% of its workforce in order to, quote, stay competitive. Joel Rose, NPR News.
The Dow Jones Industrial Average is down 117 points at 42,947. From Washington, this is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. The Cambridge Police Department and the Harvard University Police Department are jointly investigating an apparent act of religiously threatening vandalism after multiple anti-Semitic stickers were discovered around Harvard Square. The stickers were reported to police after they were discovered near Harvard Hillel, the university's largest Jewish center. The stickers are of the Israeli flag, but instead of the Star of David inside, there is a swastika in its place, along with the text, "Stop Funding Israeli Terrorism." The incident comes just days after Hillel leadership reported intimidating posters discovered outside Rosofsky Hall at the university last week. 200 people gathered at Our Lady of Victory Parish in Centerville yesterday for Ethel Kennedy's funeral. The widow of Senator Robert F. Kennedy died Thursday at 96 after complications of a stroke. She was the oldest living member of the Kennedy family. Prominent politicians and Kennedy family members were in attendance, including Ethel Kennedy's son, Joseph Kennedy II. He told WBZ he was glad his parents would finally be together in heaven.
If she doesn't make it to heaven, none of us got a chance. So she, she's going to go to heaven, and he went to heaven, and I know that, and they're together right.
Of her life, Ethel Kennedy spent quite a bit of time on Cape Cod at the Kennedy compound in Hyannis. Sports, preseason basketball, Celtics in Toronto tonight, 54 degrees in Boston right now. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Bank of America, offering access to resources and digital tools designed to help local to global companies make moves for their businesses. Learn more at bankofamerica.com/bankingforbusiness.
He is Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Yeagan. Welcome to hour number 3 of Boston Public Radio. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library in Copley Square, and we are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. I want to give you a few programming notes. We are very excited. All week long, we're having the debate questions, 5 ballot questions. We've had 2 so far. Tomorrow, we're going to be debating whether MCAS should be eliminated as a graduation requirement. It's going to start at 11 o'clock like all the other ones. And tomorrow, we're going to get a call, a Zoom in from space from NASA astronaut Sunny Williams. She's the one that's been up in space a little bit longer than she expected to be when she jetted off, or rocketed off, I should say. She's going to call Earth to talk to us, and then the governor's going to be here.
Call Earth.
She is. She's calling Earth.
She's zooming into our show. That's correct.
Right.
She
and
is.
the governor, Maura Healey, is going to be here from 1 to 2 tomorrow.
She's on Earth, correct?
The governor. She is on, or she is
fine.
firmly on planet Earth, Jim. Yes.
And by the way, if you haven't listened to the 2 debates we've done so far on tip wages and legalization of some psychedelic drugs, 2 of the 5 ballot questions, not only are they online at gbhnews.org, but after the debaters leave us, there's a little less than a half hour for you to call in or text and give us your opinion and ask your questions about the issue that we just discussed. We're joined now on Zoom by John King. John is the chief national correspondent for CNN behind the great reporting project All Over the Map on CNN. John, good to see you.
I'm from the campaign trail. That's something like outer space, right?
Yeah, a nerve-wracking space at this particular junction.
Where are you, by the way? You're in a car. Where are you?
I'm in a car in Wixom, Michigan, which is just outside Detroit. I'm back here revisiting our auto workers group because if you're paying much attention in recent days, one of the things we're exploring so close to the election, 3 weeks from tonight, we count votes, are cracks in the coalitions. And, Vice President Harris has some trying to figure out how complicated, how important, how troubling the math is, but she has some cracks in her coalition, including with labor folks. So we're back here revisiting a group we've come to see a couple times before.
Well, it's particularly interesting because the president of the auto workers is probably the strongest labor leader president supporter of, I don't know if you can measure it, but he is clearly all in at the convention and beyond. So.
Well, is it premature to ask you so far before you give us the overall state of the race? Right. I know you were in Milwaukee, but talking about the same issue with some black voters. But have you talked to anybody yet, or is this yet to come?
I just finished one interview on camera and had a bunch of conversations, on the phone in recent days, planning to come back out here over the last couple of weeks or so. And there's a similar dynamic. And so my question is, when we were here the first time, people said they thought on the factory floor. Around 50-50. These are, auto workers who work for Chrysler. The ones we've talked to work for Chrysler and Ford. Obviously, there's GM out here as well. Stellantis is the parent company of Chrysler. I think it's about 50-50. One of the reasons we decided to come back now is that being in touch with them, since the switch from Harris, some of them tell us that on the floor there are, conversations about a woman's not up to the job or conversations about race factoring in. So we wanted to come here and get it firsthand. We just finished an interview with a gentleman, Bill Govier is his name, who works for Ford. Last time we were out here, he was conflicted. He was thinking about supporting RFK Jr. And now because RFK Jr. is out of the race, he's for Trump. And so he's, just one example, anecdotal. But you do see, and want to be careful, the vice president has made this a very competitive race. The vice president has plateaued, I would say, or flatlined a little bit, but she's still in a position where she could win this race. Donald Trump could win this race. So Democrats say, why are you focusing on the quote-unquote negatives? Well, I'm trying to do the math. I'm going to have to do 3 weeks from tonight when we get into all of these counties. And so sometimes you're looking at, where is she, quote-unquote, hurting versus Biden in terms of the coalition. That doesn't mean she's not going to be better than Biden in other areas, but that's what I'm out here trying to figure out. If you're running a little bit stronger among black women, or you're running a little bit stronger among the suburbs, how much white collar union support can you use? How much can you take a drop among black men or among Latino men? That's part of this is the most complicated race I've ever covered. It's my 10th presidential campaign, and the math is the most complicated I can think of. I mean, the Perot third party candidate was different. It was different kind of math. But this one, I stay up late at night reading data and doing the math.
Speaking of constituencies that are critical, where according to data I've seen on your station, Kamala Harris is not doing as well as either Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden. We just discussed this with the Attorney General of Massachusetts. It's with black men, and it was an appeal to them that Barack Obama started making in Pittsburgh the other day. We played that too, suggesting that they might have a problem voting for a woman. You had some incredibly interesting conversations in Milwaukee talking about, I guess you'd say, the gender gap among black voters this election. Here's some voices with whom you spoke. The first is Angela Lang, a community organizer, then a couple of others.
We're seeing folks in heavily red areas that are getting together with other women at coffee shops without their husbands knowing, for example, and starting to have those conversations.
We got the most to lose right now.
Off-the-chart support among women is critical for Harris. When these canvassers encounter a Trump supporter, it is almost always a black man. Brian McMurtry was a lifelong Democrat, but he voted for Trump in 2020. He's undecided, but leaning Trump this year.
The cost of living, gas, food prices, rent is hard. You try to, keep up and try to, stay away from the credit card.
What was your major takeaway from those discussions, John King?
So that if you listen to the beginning and the end there, right? Brian McMurtry voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016. Right, he's a dad. He's got 2 kids, but he voted for Trump in 2020, and he's probably going to vote for Trump. He says he hasn't 100% decided, but he's one of the ones who said, I have no problem voting for a woman president, but I don't think she or Putin would treat her with respect. So Trump's done the job. I'm probably going to go that way. And so, is that a way of hiding the fact that you don't support a woman? He says it's not him. He says he's trying to do the right thing for the country. We could have a debate about that. But there's a black man from a Democratic family traditionally who himself has voted Democratic traditionally, who's about to cast his second vote for Donald Trump. Angela Lang is the part I'm trying to figure out, because we've talked in past campaigns, Jim and Marjorie, is there a hidden Trump vote? Are there people who are going to vote for Trump, but they won't say so because it would cause them grief at home? It would, start a fight at work. Well, there's some people who think there might be a little bit of a hidden Harris vote, in that this is the first presidential election since the Dobbs decision overturning Roe v. Wade. And so are there, women out there who've just had enough of Donald Trump, or who are voting on the abortion issue, but live in Republican households, or live with really Trumpy partners, or surrounded in a Trump neighborhood, who don't want to say so? Angela Lang says when she talks to other organizers, she works in Milwaukee, in the city itself, but she says when she talks to friends who are out in the more rural, more conservative areas, that these conversations are happening. So that's what I'm trying to figure out. Where do you lose? Where do you gain? That's the complicated math.
You know, one of them, it surprised me, and I get your reaction. The New York Times reported on Sunday in one of their polls that Black Americans in general, 40% of them are okay, at least according to this poll, with deporting people who came here illegally and with getting rid of immigrants who came into this country illegally, which kind of surprised me because I always thought there was a big racist aspect to not wanting brown-skinned people to come to the country. And I was surprised by that. What do you make of it? And that's a Trump thing, obviously, the border. So that could be part of the support from Black men on the border.
You do hear more of that in a time of economic anxiety, economic uncertainty, cost of living, globalization. Where are the jobs of the future? This is something where I think I've used this phrase before. We meet so many people who feel there's nobody offering them a North Star. Where are we going? And so what happens when you're nervous? That's when people can tap into your fears or try to get you to blame somebody else or look around. And look, let's also be honest. The Biden administration, especially early on, did not do a good job at the border. This is a very difficult issue for the Democrats, and Biden kind of, he reversed a bunch of Trump policies, and then there was a huge wave of illegal migration. Didn't do much about it. In recent months, those numbers have gone down because the president did take steps. But there are a lot of people who think the system is broken and that Washington hasn't done anything for a long time, and that Trump will, quote unquote, fix it. And there are even people you meet who say, well, he's not going to round them all up. He's not going to throw them all out. He's not going to use the National Guard or take some extraordinary measures to do that. That's what Trump does. He exaggerates and he sensationalizes, but that means he's going to deal with the issue. You meet a lot of voters like that who have lost faith in Washington, don't think Washington can do big things, but they do think, Trump will cut my taxes and he'll secure the border and I'll learn to block out all the stuff I don't like. And you do find that, again, I would take almost the white and the black and the Latino out of it among blue-collar workers who are worried about the future of their job and who think illegal migration is at least a piece of the threat to their job, at least a threat to competition for their job, or the reason their wages aren't going up as fast. And so I would almost take the race out of it. There's an education gap in our politics, and there's sort of a where are you in the economy, your wages gap in our politics that I think blows away the traditional race and gender lines we've used before to sort of set our metrics.
John, one last thing before we take a quick pledge break, and then we'll continue with you. When I see someone like Barack Obama, who I would assume is the most popular living Democrat, go out and speak, and maybe less popular, Bill Clinton going out to the countryside, for lack of a better expression, is the target historically the voter who is on the wrong side and he attempts to bring him back, or is the voter that's disenchanted, isn't going to vote, and his goal is to gin up that person and get them to actually turn out for who that leader thinks is the right person? Who are they aiming at?
We've had two successive presidential elections decided by somewhere in the ballpark of 75,000 to 100,000 votes in 3 or 4 states. Right. So this is going to be one on the margins. So Bill Clinton's in rural areas trying to get places that are going to vote for Trump to vote for Trump 60-40 as opposed to 65-35. Because those few hundred votes in those places, in this county, few hundred there. Georgia was 11,579 votes, I think. It was just under 12,000 votes. Right. So if you can move a couple hundred votes, that matters. Obama, again, you see this erosion among black men in particular. If you want to win Michigan, you need high turnout in Detroit in the African community, right? If you want to win in Wisconsin, it's Milwaukee. In Pennsylvania, it's Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. In North Carolina, it's Charlotte and Mecklenburg County. In Georgia, it's Atlanta. I could go on, right? And so you're in the margins, right? All of those states I just mentioned. Michigan was 154,000 votes last time. Wisconsin was 20,000. Pennsylvania's 80,000. Yeah. This is going to be one in the margins, and so. One of the things I said before, one of the benefits Vice President Harris has is the energy among African American women is off the charts. The problem for her, in quotes, is that's the most loyal Democratic constituency. They have high turnout to begin with. So you can't gain much more, if you get what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. You can't gain much more. So, but you do get their energy and enthusiasm helping to turn out votes and helping maybe to talk like Barack Obama was trying to do, to talk to black men who are wavering. The Obama thing is interesting. I know some people who are involved in that, and they think he kind of went too far in the finger pointing and the lecturing, that he could have delivered the message without that. But again, we'll count votes in 3 weeks, and we'll see who's right or wrong about that.
We're speaking with John King, Chief National Correspondent for CNN. We're going to keep talking to him after a quick break. You're listening to 89.7 GBH, Boston Public Radio.
Think about it. For 3 hours every day, you get to hear thought-provoking conversations on local, national, and international issues for free. It only happens with your support, so please support your Boston Public Radio listening by calling 888-897-9424 or giving online at gbhnews.org.
Of course, it is free to listen, of course, but it's not free to put out this operation 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. As Jim says, we have a lot of great guests on our show, and we have wonderful shows all night and all weekend. And we also have a TV station that has a few nice shows on it, too, doesn't it? Wouldn't you say?
I believe so.
So anyway, if you do listen to these things for free, and you listen to them a lot, and maybe you're feeling a little guilty because you haven't donated and all this time you've been listening, well, now is your opportunity. And today, you get a very nice gift. For $12.50 a month, you get to have a virtual wine tasting with Rick Steves, the great Rick Steves, travel guru. We have him on from time to time. I love talking to him. He's so soothing. It's a fun thing. They ship, if you join up for this thing at $12.50 a month, you get 6 small bottles of wine shipped to your house. 2 people, comes to your door. Then you sit there and you have this whole Zoom thing with Rick and a sommelier, have a couple of hors d'oeuvres. He tells you all about the wine. It's a really fun night. Jim and I have done it a bunch of times. So if you haven't done any donating before, maybe now is the time to do it. And by the way, a couple of people who have already donated sent some nice notes. This is Joanna Worcester. We enjoy the international stories you do in a sensory manner with music and access with international families. We appreciate the facts surrounding this election. Denise from Wayland, I appreciate the fact-based news coverage and the interesting and inspiring stories of things happening in the Boston area. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
Well, here, just look at this week. You talked about a big week. Every morning we are starting with a debate on each of the 5 ballot questions. The Attorney General is with us today. Tomorrow, the governor is with us for an hour. Sonny Williams on the International Space Station
zooming in.
But can we talk about what's happening right now?
Yeah.
In an election that I think is as important as any in my lifetime or yours, who is more to be dependent upon than someone like John King?
John King.
From CNN.
Famous.
Every Tuesday afternoon, he's a fairly busy guy, I should say.
From Dorchester.
Every Tuesday afternoon, he spends time with us, which I would say is a real valuable thing for all of us, Marjorie and me included. If any of that matters to you, if you value that, and I assume you do, or you're not hearing my voice, do it now. 888-897-9424. Go online at gbhnews.org. Make a contribution, whatever amount you can. If you want to do the Rick Steves thing, which is great, $150 all at once or $12.50 a month. If you can't afford that or aren't interested, give $5 a month, $10 a month. If you have money, $1,000, whatever it is, contribute what you can at 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. And everybody who works here, thanks you. Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Egan, live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock, our debate is on the proposed repeal of MCAS's graduation requirement. And is it noon? What time is the governor here? 1 o'clock's the governor, 11:40. Sonny Williams zooms in from the International Space Station. Zooming in from somewhere in Michigan is CNN's John King.
You know, John, we always talk about what matters in terms of hurting for President Trump. If you're not a fan of his, which I am not, and I've seen these ads lately, and they're running on your station, CNN. I assume they're running on Fox. They have Mike Pence saying he's too dangerous to run the country. They have his former Secretary of Defense Esper saying he's too dangerous to run the country. They have the former Joint Chief of Staff General Milley calling him a fascist and saying he doesn't say this in the ad, but he's said that he's very dangerous and he's afraid if Trump is reelected, he's going to court-martial him for his offenses. I wonder if those things give people pause, or because it seems in general nothing seems to matter of the president's misdeeds. I wonder if those do.
It doesn't seem to matter to his core base. A quick point of personal privilege to the people listening out there. They talked about all the great free programming. This is my free therapy every Thursday. So if you support John King's free therapy. I have a great collection of GBS T-shirts, and I have 2 or 3 of the Jim and Marjorie mugs that I have coffee with in my office and at home. But I may sign up for that wine tasting. I'll try wine for the first time. Why not, right?
That's right.
Wait a second. For the first time?
I'm kidding.
I think he's kidding.
Okay.
That's a
Sorry.
Yeah. That was kind of like saying the election was stolen.
Okay.
That was not a factual statement.
Yeah. Then you can try beer for the first time too, John, right?
Yeah. First time this hour.
Exactly.
So back to the very serious conversation. That does appeal. Again, we talked earlier about the margins, right?
Right.
One of the things that Harris campaign is trying to do, and this was really the central message of Joe Biden. It has become sort of a piece of the message of Vice President Harris, is that Donald Trump's too dangerous. He's a threat to democracy. He's erratic. A guy like General Milley, who served in the military for years, he's not a partisan guy, calls him a fascist. Please listen to these people. I'm a Democrat. It's essentially the Harris campaign saying, you're not going to, if you're a Republican or someone who's disaffected from politics, and you're not going to believe me because I'm his opponent. Well, what about his vice president? What about generals? What about people who serve so closely with him, who think he's a threat to democracy and a threat to just our way of life beyond, a big thing. So that's their effort, right? And so what's that aimed at? That's it. Remember, Nikki Haley was still getting 10, 15%. And some of that's a protest vote. You don't want to overstate it, but you also don't want to understate it. Those are people who live in, Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, and Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and who live, just outside of Milwaukee, Waukesha, the suburbs of Milwaukee. Those are the people who can help decide a very close election. That's who they're aiming at. They're trying to disqualify Donald Trump. The other side is that Trump himself is not a disciplined candidate. But if you watch your television about Kamala Harris, she's the radical leftist liberal from San Francisco. And then they're going after her, saying she's friends with the Squad, and turning her back on Israel. And then the ad that a lot of people say has actually been effective, even though I would call it mean-spirited, is the one about her support. We have a debate about the policy, but the ad is so mean-spirited about transgender Americans.
Yeah.
But it's working. It is working. It is having, Donald Trump is for you. She is with they, them, is the tagline of that ad. And you hear from people, I can tell you here in Michigan, there are black pastors who are aligned with Democrats who have called up their local Democratic congresspeople and county chairman and said, I have a problem. I have a problem. A church on Sunday, I have a problem. Union members, this is coming up with them. Cultural issues. Before I did this interview, was talking to a local union president who says, there's just no question the Biden-Harris administration on labor issues is the most pro-union administration in history, or at least since FDR. But he says, but I try to say that to them, and they're talking about, transgender and abortion and guns and other stuff. And they can't break through to them. So both sides are trying to disqualify the other one, essentially push them to the fringe. That tells you they both understand how close this is, and they're going after a little pocket of votes here and a little pocket of votes there.
John, one of the criticisms of Kamala Harris until maybe still, but several weeks ago, was she was doing so few interviews in mainstream national press. She obviously did the one on CNN. She's done some others. Tomorrow she's on Fox News, and I'm not quite sure who that's targeted to in terms of the Harris campaign. What do you make of that decision by the Harris campaign?
A couple of things. Number one, I do think sometimes people in our business, especially in Washington, where I work, or New York, where a lot of the decisions are made, have too much self-important navel gazing. That like she has to do more interviews with CNN or the New York Times or Fox News or pick your poison. I think that's important. I think especially because she's the vice president and people don't know a lot about her. Donald Trump is such a known quantity. And she is an unknown quantity in some ways. All vice presidents are. That's not a criticism of her. Yeah. It is somewhat a criticism of how the Biden White House has handled her for 8 years, especially knowing that the president couldn't be so active. But she has a lot to do to fill in the canvas, if you will. So I think everything she can do, radio interviews, podcasts, TV interviews, and appearances. But you got to get out where the people are, too. You can't campaign from a television studio. So if you're doing all of the above, I think that's a smart strategy wherever you're doing it. Why go on Fox News? Again, some of those Haley Republicans might watch there. Some of those conservatives who agree with Donald Trump on policy but don't like the chaos are watching. And if you can peel off some of them, There's another piece of this, though. She's trying at the end of the campaign to get under Donald Trump's skin, saying he won't debate me again. He won't release his medical records. He's afraid. He's a coward. His image is tough. He's not a tough guy. And that's part of that. Donald Trump keeps saying that she won't do these things. It's Donald Trump who is not doing mainstream media interviews. He's going on friendly podcasts and he's doing all this stuff. You don't see Donald Trump. She did the 60 Minutes interview, which is part of our presidential tradition. She released some detailed health records, which is part of our tradition until Donald Trump. So she's trying to say he's a coward. What are you hiding? I'm not afraid. You are. It's a strength argument. And then part of that also is, he is, again, way outside the norms of what we're used to. I don't know that outside the norms works anymore because I think that's part of Trump's identity. Everybody knows he's outside the norms. But again, in a tiny race that could be settled on the margins, if you can get 50 or 100 people there, that's 50 or 100 people you didn't have yesterday.
I was going to ask you if you think he can dance, but we'll leave that to our listeners in a few minutes.
People should, what was that?
39 minutes of what was that? We're going to talk to our listeners.
I cannot dance. I can't speak for him, but I cannot dance.
John, before you go away, what do you think of your new quarterback?
Oh, Jim. Look, I wish him the best. He needs a better team around him. I think they made the right decision as long as they can keep him healthy. He's got to learn. So let's do it. You see a lot of the other young quarterbacks around the league. A lot of them have better offensive lines. A lot of them have better wide receivers. But I have nothing against Jacoby Brissett. He was trying his best. Let's do it. And if you're going to get back to the playoffs in 2 or 3 years, the kid's got to get his sea legs. So fingers crossed.
By the way, the reason I'm laughing is not because of what John just said. I'm laughing when John said a minute ago, "What was that?"
What was that?
We'll talk about it at depth. Good to talk to you, John. We'll speak to you next week. 3 weeks to go. Thank you, John.
John, thank you very much.
Pick up the phone. Pick up the phone.
I'm glad we can be a therapeutic moment for you in the middle of your busy week. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Kid from Dorchester needs the therapy.
That's right.
Thank
We have been speaking with CNN Chief
You
National
want to pick up the phone
Correspondent.
there. He's encouraging people to participate and pledge.
That's right. That is right.
He's
yes,
quite
he's
a guy.
very loyal GBH guy.
He's a wonderful guy.
And he's got all those smug mugs, Jim.
He does.
Everybody loves those smug mugs.
Yes, they do.
Anyway, behind the reporting project, all over the map is what John King is up to now, as well as commenting back in the studio about the election, the famed map wall. Up next.
Magic wall.
Right, that's right, the magic wall.
Whatever
Sorry.
it is.
Okay, up next, we were just talking with John King about the former president dancing for 39 minutes last night at a rally. The people didn't know quite what to think. They thought he was going to talk to them, and instead he breaks into a dance, I guess you could call it that.
Sway.
Yes. So it inspired us to talk about our own dancing in our lives. Are you like a swayer too, or are you a bopper, or are you somebody who's totally uncoordinated? You have no rhythm, but you throw yourself out there and do what you can at weddings and high school reunions and stuff like that. Dancing and You is next. Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH live from Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
If you listen to Boston Public Radio 3 hours a day, that's 15 hours a week, 60 hours a month, and 720 hours a year. Maybe it's time you pitched in. Call 888-897-9424 or give online at gbhnews.org.
So, as you know, Marty and I don't read complimentary things during the year except during pledge, and we do make an exception then. Lisa from Merrimack, New Hampshire, when she was kind enough to make contribution, wrote, "Love Marjorie and even Jim." Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisa.
And here, this is a good one. Mary from West Greenwich, Rhode Island. Or you say Greenwich? How do you say?
Greenwich.
Okay, fine. I love Jim and Marjorie, but I love wine more. This is my third year donating during the Rick Steves promo. By the way, there is nobody we have a lot of great guests. There's no better storyteller than Rick Steves.
Oh, he's great.
And for $12.50 a month or $150 all at once, not only do you get to be in the presence of a wonderful man, but you're going to hear stories, not just about wine, but I'm sure about his travels. These are Italian wines, 6 small bottles of Italian wine. You're going to learn so much about Italy and where they came from. There's a sommelier who will join Rick, and for $150 or $12.50 all at once, can you imagine that? is all you pay to get an evening with Rick Steves and support something we hope you value, which here at GBH News. You dial 8, or we don't dial anymore, whatever you do. You call 888-897-9424. Go to gbhnews.org, a twofer, an evening with Rick Steves and wine, and support for a news organization that we hope you care a lot about.
Yeah, Rick Steves, you talk to him, and 5 minutes into the conversation, you're getting calmer and calmer.
It's
By
totally
the end
true.
of the conversation, you are so calm and so relaxed, and a lot of us are not very relaxed
Oh, really?
at this particular juncture. No,
I
3
didn't
weeks
notice
away
that.
from
Yeah.
Election Day,
Yeah.
and it's a good antidote to the stress in your life. Plus, it's wonderful learning about that wine and drinking the wine. And we appreciate very much people who take the time to donate and to say these nice things. Frank in Providence, also, my wife and I are big fans of Rick Steves, and big fans of wine. And then we have an anonymous friend of Walpole who says, thank you for the ballot questions discussion this week. And they also love Italian wine. We're going to have ballot discussions in depth the day before the election, too, with Evan Horowitz from Tufts, who's analyzed all these questions, which would be great.
Yeah.
And another friend, anonymous in Arlington, says Jim and Marjorie make working from home a lot less lonely. So here's the number, 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. I'll give it to you again. It's 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. If you've been listening for a while, you can listen for free. You can watch the station for free, but it costs a lot of money to put this operation together, and well more than 70% of our money comes from the generosity excuse me, of listeners like you. 888-897-9424 or gbhnews.org.
One of Donald Trump's favorite songs, playing yesterday when he swang, dancing, whatever he's doing, for 39 minutes. Welcome back to Boston Public Radio, live from the library, streaming youtube.com/GBH News. For the rest of the show, we're talking about, I guess you'd say, the art of the dance.
That's right.
At a town hall in Pennsylvania yesterday, Donald Trump, well, he did this.
Let's not do any more questions. Let's just listen to music. Let's make it into a music. Who the hell wants to hear questions?
Exactly. There were only 5 questions. That was the governor of one of the Dakotas, Kristi Noem, standing next to him.
The one who shot her dog.
Exactly. And for the next 39 minutes, I repeat, 39 minutes, Trump played music from his self-curated rally playlist, swaying, and I guess you could say bopping back and forth. It's a no policy, just vibes approach that we should be used to from the former president, and yet this just felt. What did John just say? What was that?
What was that? Well, it was very unusual. People didn't know if they should stay, if they should leave. Some of them
or if they should
leave,
dance.
If they should dance.
So
they didn't know if this was like a break in the action. Apparently, there were 2 medical emergencies that kind of slowed down the evening, and then
let's play some music. So we have a couple of questions. What do you make of Trump's dance interlude? By the way, Harris can really dance. Can you agree?
Yes, she can.
And I'm sort of in the Trump mode. What do you make of that? And secondly, how do you handle those social situations where you're expected to sort of shake it on a date, at weddings? Do you let the music move you? And do you admire people, even if they can't dance, who have the courage to just get up and do it? The number's 8, and are you one of those people? At 877-301-8970. I want to spend most of the time on dancing in our lives, but just give me a quick reaction. What do you think of the Trump thing?
I thought it was inexplicable. I didn't get it. I think that they did want to hear him talk and answer questions and tell his stories. But he's famous for having his Spotify playlist. Apparently he does this at Mar-a-Lago all the time. He goes down there, people are having dinner and stuff, and he does the playlist. Everybody dances around. Then certain people like Celine Dion get very upset when he uses her songs, or Bruce Springsteen. Did Bruce Springsteen get upset?
I think he did, yeah.
A lot of people get upset when he uses their songs because they're not fans of his. But he has a playlist. It's rather, it goes back to the Rat Pack with Dean Martin from years ago. It's pretty.
He had a playlist?
He has a big playlist. Yeah.
Dean Martin?
No, Donald Trump.
What's got to do with Dean Martin?
Because the songs, some of them are very old.
Oh, like
yes.
What, like Ave Maria? We'll treat you to that in a couple of minutes.
Ave Maria is very old, but the Rat Pack kind of songs, Sinatra and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, 877-301-8970. You ever seen Harris dance? with like in that drum line or whatever she's doing with kids. You ever seen that video?
Yes, I have seen her in the drum line with the kids. So that's the thing, you always feel bad at weddings, because there'll be couples, and there'll be a great band or there'll be a great DJ, and one half of the couple will love to dance, the other half of the couple hates to dance. Usually, who's on the dance floor at weddings?
Women.
All the women are dancing
Well, can I
together.
say something? You hate this because you don't like any compliments ever. You can really dance. I don't mean what you're doing now,
That's
whatever
nice.
that was.
I have the white girls.
I've seen you dance
I
at
have the white
social
girls
events.
Overbite.
No, you don't.
I
Actually.
do.
No, you
I
don't.
do. I have to fight
You're
the
a fabulous
overbite.
dancer, and I am a tip. I'm almost, as I say, this pains me to say this. I'm almost in the Trump mode. I can sway from time to time, and you decide: are you going to be embarrassed when you stand up when you're not a great dancer, even though you get into it, particularly if you've had a drink or two, or are you going to be ridiculed by people? How do you, when you see somebody who gets up to dance who doesn't have the quality of moves that you do, how do you look upon him or her?
I think
with
that
pity
they
or
get
with
up,
admiration?
Admiration. They get up
Do you
and
really?
they get up and they tried. They get up
That's
and they
sort of
tried.
how I
because
feel.
it's fun to dance, isn't it? To just kind of reckless abandon and lose your inhibitions, get out there on the
Can I
dance
say
floor.
one more thing? Do you know how long 39 minutes is?
It's a long time.
39 minutes.
It's like 3 of our segments.
We were
or
watching.
2 of our segments,
We were
I
watching
guess.
the video this morning of Donald Trump at this rally, and we watched for 1 minute. And 1 minute was a long time to watch a politician swaying at an event. He did it for 39 times that long. It's really unbelievable.
Listen to this. I generally don't dance on first dates because I'm looking for a second date.
That's a good line. Let's go to Lori in Stoneham. Hi, how are you? Or Wolf.
Hi, guys.
What
Love you
is
guys.
this? Hi. Lori, where are you
Hi.
calling from?
Stoneham.
Stoneham, okay. All right.
So I have a sign in my kitchen that says, "This kitchen is for dancing."
Oh, yes.
Parties, I make people dance in my kitchen. Like, I make them dance. Like, I love dancing. I go to the gym. My daughter goes with me sometimes, and she's like, "Mom, you're embarrassing me. You're like dancing. You have your music on. You're like
love
dancing
that.
at the weights." I don't know. I just don't. And that thing that Trump did was totally embarrassing to this country. That is not dancing. That was-
Wait. If you want anybody who comes into your kitchen to do a little dancing, what does it say? This kitchen is for dancing. He decided that town hall was for dancing.
No, not really. I don't know what that was. That wasn't dancing.
Okay.
No, if you want to see dancing, come into my kitchen.
Anytime, Lori. We got it. Thank you.
Lori,
That's excellent. Thank
we
you so
have
much for your
somebody-
call.
We have somebody who's in your wheelhouse here. Listen to this. I made a New Year's resolution 3 years ago to dance every day. I've been keeping it up ever since, and I highly recommend it.
That's pretty great.
I mean, dancing is a great. It's just a great thing to do. But somebody else didn't like Trump's performance either. He said, to quote Waltz, the Trump thing was just weird.
Yeah, that is really what my takeaway was. It was very odd. Did you not think in the middle of a Q&A kind of thing at his rally?
Somebody from Israel says, I can't wait to see what Jimmy Kimmel does with this tonight. Yeah, he's been pretty good on his monologues.
Trump went out of his way to say how much contempt he has for Jimmy.
Oh, my God. I
By the
think
way,
he's a
this is not
riot.
part of the topic, but I got it out of my system. I don't mind when politicians criticize other politicians.
Yep.
That's the nature of the beast. Trump's latest line, I don't know if you've picked up on this, is to attack the intelligence of Kamala Harris.
I know.
And he never goes out of his way. And I even those of you who are big Trump supporters out there, can we agree this is not anybody who should be criticizing the intelligence of any other candidate for office? I mean, really?
Jim, obviously he can do whatever he wants and people still vote for him. It's really an odd phenomenon.
By the way, an anonymous texter says Trump has a concept of a dance. You have to remember,
That's
back
a good
to
one.
that was a good one.
Concept of a health plan is what he said in the debate with Harris.
We gotta
Kathleen
take a
in the
break.
car.
We gotta
Thank
take
you
a
for-
break.
Oh, we have to take a break.
Kathleen, don't
Hold
go away.
on,
You're
we'll
first
be right
when we come back.
You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7. We're talking about dancing, the role it plays in your life. We're broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library.
Boston Public Radio. Live, local conversations every day, brought to you by listener support. Now it's your turn to keep the conversation going with an ongoing contribution in any amount. Please sign up as a sustaining member during our fall membership drive. Call 888-897-9424 or give online at gbhnews.org.
Okay, this is our fall membership drive. We usually have a spring and summer membership drive. And the reason we have these is because otherwise we would have commercials, which I've said a million times, but commercials can really drive you nuts. They go on and on and on and on and on. And this is just a few times during the year. So We don't have commercials because of this. And by the way, we've got a really great gift today, 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. It is an evening of wine tasting with the great Rick Steves. You know, they're also going to do interactive trivia, and they're going to talk obviously. Yeah,
that's
it's going to
great.
be wine tasting instruction, conversation, of course, and interactive trivia. Just a really fun time. And as I said before, we've done this a couple of times, Jim and I, and it's just a fun evening. So if you like what you hear at GBH, if you like National Public Radio, this is a top opportunity to contribute whatever you can if you have not given before, or even if you have given before and you want to give some more. We'll take whatever you got, basically, is our attitude here. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
No better choice than Rick Steves. We did a pretty good job, I have to say. We were a little nervous about doing this when we were hosting him, and it turned out to be huge fun. We learned a lot. And by the way, the wine, I don't know if this matters, the wine is really good.
It's great.
We assume 6 small bottles is going to be like that screw-off crap you drink on airplanes. This is really high-quality
they're little
stuff.
bottles, so you
No,
can
but they're like half bottles.
Right.
They're not like tiny little bottles.
Well, you can have plenty of liquor there.
Yes, you can.
But the point is, if you want to just have a little taste of each one, too, and not get too sauced. I mean,
Which is what you did, a taste of each one.
A little taste
then you had
of each
another
one.
taste of each
Then
one and
another
that sort of
taste,
thing.
That's right.
So the number is 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. And by the way, if you do the $12.50 a month thing, then you become a sustaining member. You know, you pick a number that you're comfortable with, either $12.50 because you want to do the Rick Steves thing, $10 a month, $5 a month, $100 a month, and that automatically will come off your credit card or out of your checking account. And as I've said repeatedly, it's great for you because it's a modest amount, comparatively speaking, as opposed to one lump sum. And it's great for the people who do the budgets here because they know what to expect. So sustaining membership, both of us are sustaining members, by the way, is a great first choice. But give whatever you can to show that you value what our colleagues do here as much as we value what our colleagues do here.
You know what? Did we say it was Tuesday, February 11th at 8 p.m.?
You just said it.
Tuesday,
So you have
February
plenty of time
11th
to
at
plan.
8 p.m. So you have absolutely very much time to plan. Again, the number 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
This was the first song that Donald Trump called for. It's by Pavarotti is singing. And the moves he made to Ave Maria were just astonishingly great. You're listening to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marge Regan live at the Boston Public Library.
I've probably been to 100 funerals where I've heard Ave Maria played in the middle of the Mass. It's unusual for kind of an upbeat playlist kind of thing.
Wasn't there another song like The End of the World or Everybody's Dead? What was the name of that other song? What was the other song?
Everybody's Dead.
No, it's not like, it's like Everybody's Dead.
Andrea Bocelli's Time to Say Goodbye.
Time to Say Goodbye. That's the one I meant.
That's not,
Everybody's Dead.
I don't even know that song. And then they did the great Sinead O'Connor, who probably someone previously said is rolling over in a grave. I don't imagine she was a drum fan. They play her version of Nothing Compares to You. And then there's an Elvis Presley song, American Trilogy by Elvis Presley.
And in any case, we were talking about is not Trump, quote, dancing, but you dancing or people dancing in real life. Kathleen in the car, you're next on Boston Public Radio. Welcome. Hi.
Hi. So I am also a sustaining member. I did upgrade to the
Oh, you're very kind. Thank you.
I just wanted to say that I'm for dancing of all kinds. Anybody dance?
Oh, Kathleen, we have a horrible connection. Don't go away. We're going to put you on hold, take a call, and I promise go right back to you. So stay on hold, and we hope you'll be in a better location. Jennifer in Salem, hi, quickly.
Hey, love you guys.
Thanks.
So that was not dancing. I agree with Lori. That was not dancing. He deserved the vaudeville hook. But what was more concerning to me is you always surround yourself with good people, you know, and no one pulled him off the stage. So that's what concerns me is, like, long term, what would happen if something was going on in the world and someone didn't tell him what to do.
I don't think anybody...
That was my thought on the dancing, and I'm so glad you guys are covering this. Thank you.
Jennifer, you're a good one. Thank you very much for the call. Until January 6th, did anybody on the staff stand up to him about anything? I don't think so.
I don't think so. Oh, so one of the texters says, that'll be me getting married in 2 weeks at the Boston Public Library.
Whoa. One of the
My
great
bride will
wedding
be
venues
dancing,
ever.
and I will be terrible.
Okay, let's
So there
try
you go.
Kathleen, who had a horrible connection, one more time. Let's go back up to Kathleen in a car and give it a shot. Let's hope, Kathleen. Hi.
Hey, I'm back. Hopefully you can
Better,
hear me.
better.
Yes.
Go.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was just going to say that I really think we need to talk about not the dancing, but the slurring that happened right before that.
I agree.
What led to him going into the dance party. And then when he was listening to Ave Maria, I think he really thought he was like at some kind of a church. And he just had to keep I only watched it for about 5 minutes, and I was actually worried for the guy, and I'm not a fan at all.
Well, by the way, Kathleen, I'm really glad you said what you said. Did you hear when Trump was speaking, the sound we played at the top of the segment that Kathleen's referencing? He was slurring his words, which feeds into this notion that age is catching up with this guy, too. I'm so glad you brought that up, Kathleen. Thank you. And I'm glad you stuck around for a second shot at your call. Thanks.
And he doesn't drink at all. So it's nothing to do with that he had a few
78 years old,
like
and he's 78 years old. And essentially what he was directing, I thought cruelly but fairly accurately, at the rapid aging of Joe Biden is, look in the mirror. He is aging rapidly. We had Dr. Leonard Glass here last week, a psychiatrist, talking about the cognitive decline, too. And you're seeing it. And let's hope somebody's paying attention.
I have a sign in my kitchen, says a texter. It reads, if you trip and fall, just make it part of the dance.
Let's go to Tim in Worcester. I think it's our last one. Hi, Tim.
Oh, thank you. The best for last. I want to point out 3 of the worst dancers.
Okay, go ahead.
At any Patriots celebration for our World Championship.
Yeah.
Robert Kraft.
Yeah.
Bill Belichick. And the third person is Julia Louis-Dreyfus in that horrible segment from Seinfeld.
Oh, yeah. That was a very funny segment. You know what was a great dancer that day, though? Remember? Ty Law. Remember him dancing? He was great that day.
Was he in the fur coat that day?
That was the freezing cold one.
You were there with your kid, right?
Yes, down at City Hall Plaza, and it was about 5 degrees, and we were all frozen. Okay.
That's it.
That's it. Okay. No more of that. We're done. Thank you very much for listening to Boston.
How about a little smoother outro?
I'm not smooth, Jim.
Then that's enough of that.
You might have noticed it by now.
That's enough of that. Okay.
Okay. But thank you very much.
Thank you
people who came down to the Boston Public Library. Very much appreciate that. We are done for today, but let me tell you what's going on tomorrow. I'm not smooth, so I'm turning on the wrong page, of course. Okay.
Who am I and why am I here?
Okay, tomorrow we have our third ballot question. This is a big one, very controversial. It is about removing the MCAS as a graduation requirement for students. That's going to be at 11 o'clock in the morning. At 11:40, Sonny Williams, the American astronaut, commander of the International Space Station, is going to zoom in to the show from somewhere floating above planet Earth. And Governor Maura Healey joins us for Ask the Governor. That's from 1 to 2.
Can I just say one more thing?
What?
Sonny Williams is taking the slot where people usually comment on the ballot question. Yep. We're moving that to noon tomorrow, so you will get a chance to weigh in.
That's right. And one other thing, Jim and I are going to be moderating an event with Simon Montgomery in a great new book with the chicken nose.
Cannot wait.
That is the day after the election, November 6th, Arts at the Armory. Is that the day after the election? Yeah.
It is the day after the election.
Thank you. For tickets and more information, you go to thewilbur.com/armory.
And by the way, even if Marjorie has moved to Albania, she will zoom in for the conversation with Simon Montgomery.
Yeah, okay.
Somewhere.
I want to thank our crew, Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss, our engineer, John LaClaw Parker, our executive producer, Jamie Bologna, our team at the Boston Public Library, Maddie Geyer, Patrick Lally, Juan Jose Cadena, and thanks to our host of the Newsfeed Cafe and across the street at the Lenox Hotel. The Culture Show with Jared Bowen is starting right after the 2 o'clock news here on 89.7 GBH. I'm Marjorie Egan.
I'm Jim Bradley.
Thanks again for tuning in. I hope you can tune in tomorrow and have a wonderful afternoon.
This is the GBH Fall Membership Campaign. More than 70% of our annual budget comes from contributions from people like you, who listen to the station and use our website. So today we're asking you to help pay for this service by giving what you can, online at gbhnews.org, or you can give us a call at 888-897-9424. I'm Liz Lavoie, here with Melissa Jones.
Sorry, Liz, I'm so excited. I just jumped the gun there. I'm asking you to support GBH right now because we've got this great opportunity for you you with a gift of $12.50 a month as a sustainer or a one-time gift of $150. Guess what? You will get to be part of a virtual wine tasting with that guy who's the expert traveler and author, Rick Steves. How cool is that? We will send 6 small bottles of wine directly to your house, so the party will come to you. You'll have a Zoom code to use. You'll get online on Tuesday, February 11th at 8 o'clock, so you got plenty of time to get it on the calendar and get excited about it. You'll also receive a GBH wine key. It just gets better and better. You'll have wine tasting instruction, conversation, interactive trivia, and Rick will have a sommelier with him to explain the wines to you. It's going to be fantastic. The offer goes away at 7 o'clock tonight, though, so why not take advantage of this right now? Go online to gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
And it's been a fantastic day of fundraising today. Right now, we're looking to receive 28 contributions in the next 7 minutes to keep on track for this hour. Please sign up as a sustaining member, make a one-time gift, gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424. The money you give now will help fund the news in the months ahead. That's gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424.